It began 1 week ago on a straightaway turned center stage. An opening ceremony featuring all the pomp and pageantry you could ever ask for. A day to show the flag. And of course, the home team wore white. Then, amid the carnival of color, the singing and the dancing, the moment arrived. The torch entered the speedway, and it was time to ignite the competitive drives of 5,000 athletes of the Americas. 38 nations are here to compete in 30 different sports. The 10th Pan American Games are underway in Indianapolis. Welcome to Indianapolis, Indiana, the crossroads of America. And all around town, the venues are poised for action today. Busch Stadium, where today gold medal hopefuls Cuba and the United States are meeting face to face. The game is in the top of the second with the Cubans at bat, but already the United States leads 2-0. Scott Service singling in the second run as the aggressive American team went out with 2 hit-and-run singles, and they lead 2-0 top of the second inning. And here at Hinkle Fieldhouse in volleyball, another live showdown coming your way between the United States and Cuba. It will be women's competition. The Americans are led by Laurel Kessel, a member of the U.S. national team from 1975 to 1980, who quit after the Moscow boycott. She has returned to add seasoning to an otherwise inexperienced team. Downtown, we'll be at the Convention Center live, site of the boxing venue where we've anticipated showdowns between the U.S. and the Cubans, but where we did not anticipate this scene late last night. Members of the Cuban team stormed into the stands to pummel an anti-Castro demonstrator. We'll have the complete story coming up. Next door, the unmistakable landmark called the Hoosier Dome, where 2 nights ago, the American and Cuban men met for the team gymnastics title. You'll see an injured American team, led by Tim Daggett, go for its first Pan Am gold since 1975. We'll also be live at the Indiana University Track and Field Stadium, where a week of record performances will culminate in Carl Lewis's assault on Bob Beeman's hallowed long jump record. And at the adjacent natatorium, the action takes place on the 10-meter platform, where Michele Mitchell of the United States, the Olympic silver medalist, sets her sights today on gold. And back downtown, Market Square Arena, the basketball venue where the American women meet their toughest rivals, the Brazilians. They are led by one of the world's most exciting players, the woman they call Hortensia. Everybody, I'm Brad Musburger, and welcome to CBS Sports' second weekend of coverage of the Pan American Games. Now, for the next 3 hours, we're going to bring you the best in amateur sports competition. And then at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, we're going to send you out west for live third-round coverage of the International. That's a unique golf tournament where the rules have been changed to favor aggressive play. Meanwhile, here in Indianapolis, a major story continues to unfold concerning the participation of the Cuban delegation. It was around 10 o'clock last night at the Convention Center, and the boxing card was suddenly interrupted by a fight in the stands. According to eyewitnesses, members of the CID, an anti-Castro group, had waved their flag and verbally taunted the visiting Cubans, who then took matters into their own hands. The CID, those are the Spanish initials for the Movement for an Independent and Democratic Cuba, had earlier tried to disrupt a baseball game and a soccer match. And Cuban light heavyweight Pablo Romero, who had charged up the stairs, attacked one of the spectators. His teammates and members of the Cuban team security delegation quickly followed, seemingly as reinforcements. But one Indianapolis police officer caught in the middle claims that the Cubans were actually trying to stop the violence. In any event, matters got worse. More than 100 spectators milled around the area. At least 2 were reported injured and later hospitalized before police and security guards could restore order. One man led away was identified as Felix Toledo, a member of the CID who had been spotted at other venues protesting against the Cubans. He remained defiant. Finally, after about 15 minutes, calm was restored and one man arrested was identified as Ramon de Lemos, a Dominican Republic native now living in Dayton, Ohio. On hand last night at the venue for us, Tim Ryan and Gil Clancy. And Tim, that was a wild scene last night. What seemed to touch it off?
Well, Brent, we were watching Mark Menard and Jorge Emiliazo of Argentina at the time, and sitting right in this corner here, suddenly a commotion behind us in the stands directly behind us here. Gil and I both looked up there and saw the entire Cuban team in their red uniforms, easily identifiable, charging up the aisle, and then a big melee ensued. And Gil, it seemed to take a long time, although it seems like an eternity when something like that happens, before any of the security people got there to break it up.
Well, Tim, first the people in the stands, they turned around and started watching the fight in the stands instead of the fight in the ring. And after that, you saw the Cuban boxers leave their seats. They had time to walk up the stairs. One guy got knocked right down, and 3 Cuban boxers were doing a job on him. All that time before I saw any security people at all.
Well, when they did get there, they broke things up fairly quickly, but there was a lot of confusion about how it began. I don't think anybody really knows that except the principals involved. We have Barbara Sinclair, spokesperson for the Indianapolis Chief of Police. And Barbara, what has resulted? Brent Musburg has reported there's been 1 arrest. The investigation is continuing, I understand. Are there chances for charges against the boxing team or against any of the spectators?
First of all, you have the advantage because you did witness what happened. We are receiving conflicting stories from the Cuban delegation as well as the CID. Each says the other is responsible for provoking the other. So what we would like to do is have the opportunity to talk to all the individuals involved, conduct our investigation before we take any stance.
Is there the obvious thing to ask would be, will there be increased security at events involving the Cuban athletes for the rest of the games?
Security has been escalated at all of our venue sites, and most especially where those Cubans will be participating. It is the wish of the Chief of Police, as is the entire city administration, that we have a sporting event here and that politics stay out of the forefront, that we do not become a security event, and that everyone can enjoy the games. And we do not want any violence in the stands by participants in the games or by spectators.
Well, thank you, Barbara Sinclair. It certainly created a lot of tension and a rather unpleasant atmosphere in the boxing venue last night. Let's hope we don't see that again. Now let's return you to the broadcast center. Brent Musburger.
All right, Tim, thank you. And just a short time ago, Pat O'Brien was over there, and he got this reaction from Hector Cardenio, who is the president of the Pan Am Boxing Organization.
Arrested them. Well, according to the law in my country and here in the state, which is the same law that if you hit somebody, that's aggression, to be arrested.
Well, the Cuban baseball team earlier this morning was arriving for their game against the young United States team, and security obviously was increased for the team. And Pat also caught up with Alberto Juan Torrena, who is here as an observer of the Cuban team.
You think it's right for an athlete to go out in the stands, though, and hit somebody?
No, this wasn't an athlete. It was an official and coaches. That's the one who was involved in the quarrel.
Was not a boxer?
No.
Who was the official?
Some coaches was there.
Well, here is the view
boxer didn't go in the stands,
of the security.
No, it's untrue.
Here's the view of the security, which had obviously increased there at the baseball stadium. But the key point to remember now throughout all of this is that the Cuban team in no way is threatening to pull out of the games. And hopefully, as Tim Ryan said, order will be restored and we will not have another incident like that. But in reality, it really has not been easy here the last couple weeks for Cubans coming to Indianapolis. Now, let's review what has transpired up through now in an effort to put it all in a better perspective. The plane last week in Indianapolis, they were all smiles, led by former Olympic gold medalist Alberto Juan Torrena. But that was soon to change. The Cuban-American Foundation, a Miami-based group, was in town trying to encourage athletes to defect with these pamphlets listing useful telephone numbers. Veterans of the Bay of Pigs made sure they were not ignored, and Soldier of Fortune magazine offered $25,000 in gold to the first Cuban or Nicaraguan to defect at the opening ceremony. Just as the Cuban delegation prepared to enter the Speedway last Saturday, a group waving an American flag taunted the visitors from the Caribbean. Later, a plane flew overhead with a message reminding the Cubans and others that they were guests in the land of liberty.
The First Amendment allows people freedom of speech, and this is that, but in my view, it's an inappropriate expression.
The Cuban team was received with applause in the Speedway, but the next day's Cuba-Netherlands Antilles baseball game ended with hecklers tossing propaganda pamphlets at the Cuban players in the dugouts, and a minor scuffle broke out.
From what I saw, it just appeared to be a little shoving match there, and the officers responded fairly quickly and broke it up.
The Cubans took the matter seriously.
He says that anybody who comes here to offend the revolution or Fidel Castro, they are firm in their answer.
So again, let me emphasize that the Cubans and the Americans are playing baseball. They've gone to the bottom of the second inning. The United States ahead 2-0. No incidents over at Busch Stadium today. There has been increased security. And we're going to continue with our live coverage of the Pan American Games in Indianapolis. We'll be checking in with volleyball and diving.
CBS Sports coverage of the 10th Pan American Games is sponsored by your local GMC truck dealer. The Prudential, offering a full range of insurance and other financial services. Bud Light, everything else is just a light. And by 3M, worldwide sponsor of the 1988 Olympic Games.
United States at bat in the bottom of the second inning. They lead Cuba 2-0. They have knocked out the starting Cuban pitcher. They have a man on first base in the bottom of the second with nobody out. And so far against Greg Olson, the Cubans have not had a single hit in 2 at-bats against him. Now in volleyball, where the Cuban women enjoy a 22 straight match winning streak over the Americans. They are in the first game. It is best 3 of 5, and the favored Cuban women lead the U.S. team 8-5 there in that one. Now, let's get you up to date on the latest medal count for the week. The United States, as expected, dominating the gold medal standings, with Cuba in second place. Now, as expected, this has been a very strong showing so far for the American athletes. On Monday, Mike Conley of the United States soared to a gold medal in the triple jump. He set the standard at 56 feet 9.5 inches. Willie Banks, who on this track in 1985 set the world record 58.11.5, fell far short of that effort. But his jump of 55.4.5 was good enough to give him the silver and the Americans a 1-2 sweep. And in the men's 100 meters, Lee McRae gave the United States its first Pan Am gold since 1959 in this event. No stranger to gold medals, Greg Louganis. He dominated the 3-meter springboard competition just as he had done in San Juan in '79 and 4 years ago in Caracas. In basketball, coaches Denny Crum and assistant Judd Heathcote looked on as their powerful U.S. team crushed Argentina 85-58. This team is headed for the gold. On Tuesday, the Americans continue to rule the waves, but the outstanding individual performer continued to be Sylvia Pole of Costa Rica. She went after her third Pan American gold medal in the 100-meter backstroke.
For its third, but it's Sylvia Pole going after gold medal number 3, and she's got a chance at the games record of 102 set by Stephanie Walsh in 1983. Sylvia Pole with a new Pan Am record and her third gold medal.
In weightlifting, Roberto Urrutia was the center of attention. He had won a gold for Cuba in the '75 Pan Am Games. Then in '80, he defected to the U.S., and for the first time, he was facing his former countrymen. He won 3 bronze medals. On Wednesday, Jim Abbott, the one-handed pitcher who carried the flag for the U.S. in the opening ceremony, threw blanks as the Americans routed Nicaragua 18-0. And the U.S. is on a collision course with the Cubans for the gold medal. Over the track, Brazil's Joaquim Cruz took it out of cruise control to burst past a pair of Americans in the 1,500 meters.
And now we come to 100 meters to go.
This is where Cruz made his move in the Olympics, right here with 100 meters to go. And he's got that long, loping stride.
Cruz is going to take the lead and is going to win the 1,500, beating Spivey with Steve Scott finishing third.
Back in basketball, Rex Chapman of Kentucky poured in a game-high 18 as the American team rolled on. Mexico, the latest victim, as the gold medal momentum gains. Not to be outdone, the American women destroyed Peru by 69 points. And this U.S. team figures to battle Brazil for the gold. But there was some bad news. The Americans lost their fine point guard, Kami Etheridge, to a knee injury. Speaking of Brazil, they had a surprise in store for the U.S. men's volleyball team. In a match that took almost 4 hours to play, the Brazilians avenged their gold medal defeat at the hands of the U.S. in the '84 Olympics. Thursday's major story, however, took place at the IU Track and Field Stadium. Jackie Joyner-Kersee going for the world record. And she tied it with a fabulous jump of 24 feet, 5.5 inches. Another record-breaking performance was turned in by Colleen Sommer of Chandler, Arizona in the high jump. She cleared 6 feet 5 inches for a new Pan Am record. Yesterday, Cuba's Omar Ayete was one strike away from a perfect game. This bloop down the right field line broke up the no-hitter and ruined the shutout. But the game ended on this put out at third. And Cuba had buried Venezuela. And last night, America's Dave Schultz, in red, upset Cuba's world champion, Raoul Cascare. And Domingo Mesa, the Cuban heavyweight in blue, also lost to America's reigning world champion, Bruce Baumgartner. Now, the first major athletic confrontation between the Americans and the Cubans here at Indianapolis took place 2 nights ago in men's gymnastics. Our Tim Brandt, Bart Connor, and Kathy Johnson were on hand at the Hoosier Dome for that action. We'll have it for you next when our coverage of the 10th Pan American Games continues on CBS.
Welcome to the Hoosier Dome, everybody, for the finals of the team championship in men's gymnastics. As expected, it has turned into a 2-team competition. The surprise comes in the standings. Halfway through the competition, there is an upset in the making. A rebuilding United States team leads the favored Cubans by almost 2 points. The compulsories are complete. Now we head into the optionals. Brazil, a distant third and not a factor. And hello again, everybody. I'm Tim Brandt. The Cuban men have dominated the Pan Am Games in recent years. As a matter of fact, of the 24 gold medals that were handed out in the last 3 Pan Am Games, 22 have gone to the Cubans. That's why it's such a surprise that the United States team, a team which has just recently come together, is in the lead. But with 6 events still to come, this championship is far from decided. And working with me, 2 Olympic stars, 2 medalists from those games in '84 in Los Angeles, Kathy Johnson and Bart Connor. And Bart, as you look at the United States as we head in here to the finals now, the health has to be a major concern. How banged up are they?
Well, you know, normally a lead of 1.85 is considered a pretty comfortable lead in the sport of gymnastics. In the team competition, there'll be 6 performers on each event, counting the best 5 scorers. Now, where that hurts the U.S. team is the fact that they're so injured. First of all, just moments ago in the warm-up gym, Kevin Davis severely dislocated his ankle. He's taped up now, and they don't know how much he's going to be able to do. In addition to Davis, Brian Ginsberg and Charles Lakes are not at their best. Ginsberg, the American Cup champion, suffered a dislocated ankle earlier this year, and Charles Lakes is suffering from a bruised tailbone. Probably the biggest question of all lies with Tim Daggett, my teammate from the '84 Games. Tim suffered a severe neck injury earlier this year. He's coming back, and as he came into this competition with his fingers crossed, hoping that none of the repercussions of that injury would surface here. They did, however, as he was performing on the rings in the compulsory exercises, his left arm buckled, and he lost control of the rings. Definitely a very discouraging moment for Tim Daggett. Daggett and for the team as well. I spoke to Tim earlier today about what is his team expecting him to do in terms of leadership for tonight's competition.
Well, I think they'll probably be looking to me to see if I can come back. You know, I was leading the whole competition after 4 events, you know, after halfway through the competition, and they know it's tough for anyone to get knocked off like that. And if I can go out there and I think on the first event do a really good job, I think that's not going to, it'll help me, of course, but I think it'll help them a real lot.
All right, we mentioned that the Cubans trail by almost 2 points. And Kathy, the question begs, is it too much for the Cubans to make up?
Well, the Cubans are down more than I think they expected to be, but they're still in a position to challenge the United States. In contrast with the U.S. team, they're much healthier, and they're stronger than they were 4 years ago. Most importantly, they're entering a phase which is considered to be their strength, the optional exercises. They do a lot of difficult skills, which might prove to be risky here. However, they've got to do the big skills to go for the high scores in order to catch up with the United States. They're led by Cascare Suarez, who won 6 gold medals in the last Pan American Games in Caracas, and was also named Athlete of the Games. We asked him to assess the Cubans' chances. He had this to say.
Tendremos que entrar y salir, es decir,
everybody will have to perform to their utmost ability, and whenever the smoke dies down, we'll have a winner.
In men's gymnastics, there are 6 events. We have 6 teams competing for the championship, and it's an aggregate scoring system for each team. The U.S. starting on the floor exercise, the Cubans will simultaneously perform on the pommel horse. Now, we just heard Tim Daggett talk about the importance of this opening rotation.
I think we'll get a good feel of Tim's physical condition right off the bat because he's doing a new mount and Arabian double front.
This skill is so difficult to land well.
Oh, no problem. Okay, here's the second tumbling run. Round off back handspring, pike double back, a little short, 1 hop on the landing. Now he breaks into flared circles on the floor. And this is, I think, where Tim shows a little bit of his weakness. He doesn't seem to be as aggressive as he used to be on that move.
And he's very close to going out of bounds right there. It's a terrible way to lose 1/10 of a point, but I think he was okay.
There's a really nice fingertip press, but you can see his arms are quivering in order to control that handstand. Okay, and the third tumbling run is here. Round off side summy. No problem.
Tim is competing much leaner than he ever has before.
I believe he's about 9 pounds lighter than he was when he competed in the '84 games in LA. Okay, here's his last tumbling around. Tucked double back. Oh, he took it back. A couple of steps on the landing will cost him probably 2/10 of a point deduction.
Overall, a very nice performance for Tim Daggett. A remarkable story of courage and intestinal fortitude.
Now let's look again at the Arabian double front. The reason why this is so difficult to land is that you don't see the floor until right before you land. Right there. It's tough to land that, and he handled it beautifully.
Watching anxiously for the score. 9.35 for Tim Daggett. This is Cascare Suarez, Cuba's #1 gymnast. He is unusually large for a gymnast, 170 pounds.
Okay, now he starts on the pommel horse with double leg circles. He travels up to the middle. He tends to be a little sloppy here. You can see he's breaking form here and there. There's some good work in the flares as he travels all the way across the horse and hops back up to the middle. A nice combination. He doesn't have a really nice rhythm and good extension in the legs. This is probably not his best apparatus because he is so large. It's difficult for him to swing well on the pommel horse.
He did lumber a little bit during that routine. It's incredible the way he carries that large body over the horse.
You can see here now he's doing flared circles. This is the best part of his exercise. He travels up to the middle, a flared circle in the middle, and he travels down to the end. He's showing good amplitude there. And he hops back to the middle. Really nice combination in the flared circles.
But even here, his form isn't as good as it should be.
Cascare and his coach, Hector Ramirez. 1.25, a low score for Suarez. Kevin Davis limping very badly on his injured ankle. Now, the rules state he has to perform in every event or they can scratch him.
Now, Tim, we've gotten an update on Kevin's situation. He may not have suffered a dislocation as we thought earlier, but definitely he has a severe sprain. Now, as you mentioned, the rule states that he must make at least a token performance in all 6 events. Okay, now you can see here he does a round-off back handspring, and he's going to finish the exercise. He'll probably do the same in the vault. The U.S. team is not going to need him on these events, but they will need him in the other 4.
And we'll be back with Kevin's score in just a moment. Kevin Davis, obviously in pain, received a .5 on his floor appearance. Brian Ginsberg now, the 1987 American Cup all-around champion. He beat Vladimir Gogoladze of the Soviet Union for that title.
This is definitely Brian's best event. He is such an explosive tumbler. Look at that laid-out double back, easily done.
He's so naturally springy. He just bounces across the floor.
His second tumbling run, front step out through to full punch front 1 1/4. Nice combination tumbling. Look at the strength there. A plunge with his feet together and a press to a handstand.
That is tough.
Such a natural talent.
He really is talented. You know, just a couple of months ago, he dislocated his ankle. And he's the kind of guy who is so springy and so good on the floor that he could not even work out and probably score a 9.6 or 9.7 just about every time out.
The bell you just heard indicates the gymnast has 20 seconds to complete his exercise without a penalty.
Look at the height on that tuck double back. He over-rotated.
Brian Ginsberg, he freely admits he needs to be pushed. He's so talented, everything comes easy for him, and occasionally he loses his concentration.
All right, good job.
Let's take a look at what makes Brian so explosive on the floor. He's doing front step out through to a full. Now watch this, punch front 1 1/4. Those sharp, quick movements are very impressive to the judges.
While Scott Johnson waits, we see that Brian Ginsberg got a 9.7. Scott Johnson, the Olympic gold medalist. He's been a tremendous leader on this club.
And one of the reasons what makes Scott such a terrific leader is the fact that he is good on all 6 pieces of equipment.
He's also a great tumbler, as you're going to see in this first pass.
Tremendous concentration. He'll need good speed here. Laid out double back. Second tumbling run. Really nice. Tucked full in, and he stuck the landing.
The United States is not giving away any of its lead to Cuba, as some had suspected. They are working hard and having an outstanding first rotation.
As Tim Daggett mentioned at the top of the show, it's very important that the U.S. gets off to a strong start, and Scott Johnson is capping off a terrific rotation here on the floor exercise. Front combination tumbling. There's a move called a Stalder roll-up to a handstand. Now Scott's doing something different here. He's actually doing a 5-pass tumbling routine. The typical exercise is generally a 4-pass routine, but Scott is so strong on the floor that he added 1 extra tumbling pass. And right here he's going to finish with a nice tech double.
His landings are excellent.
Scott has been intense all week. His workouts have been crisp. His attitude good.
Now, one of the reasons why this routine will score really well is Scott does, as here in the second tumbling run, a full twisting double back. Now, most gymnasts use that for a mount. Scott does it in the second pass, which is much more difficult.
Look at the intensity in Johnson's face. 9.7 for Johnson. That ends a great first rotation for the United States. Now over to the horse. This is Felix Aguilera of Cuba. He didn't take up the sport of gymnastics until he was a teenager, but he is a strong performer.
And I really feel Aguilera shows tremendous style. Look at the extension in his legs, good toe point. Typically, the Cubans have been a little sloppy in terms of form, but he shows tremendous extension. This is a great exercise.
The Cubans have gotten so much stronger physically. Look at the support.
Nice single leg work. These are moves called scissors. Beautiful flares in the middle, travel down to the end, and a great dismount. That'll have to score well.
A good, solid performance by Felix Aguilera of Cuba. And we'll be back with his score as the men's team championship continues in just a moment.
All right, we'll continue with our gymnastics coverage, but Michele Mitchell, favored to win a gold medal in the platform diving, is about ready to make her second dive. We're going to go live now to John Neighbor at the natatorium. She stands in 3rd place, and she's favored. John?
Thank you, Brent. She's on the platform now getting ready for her first or second dive. This is going to be an arm stand somersault height position. Degree of difficulty 1.9. Alongside me, our analyst Olympic champion, Phil Boggs. Phil, there's a lot of pressure on this dive.
We expect Michele to take over the lead early on in the competition. Remember, the first 4 dives are their easy dives. Then they move into the difficult ones. Excellent dive. That should get some big scores. A little difficulty getting into the arm stand, but all she must show is control. And even though it took her a while to get there, she showed the control and had a great entry.
Now, Michele Mitchell is the oldest diver competing in these Pan Am Games. 25 years of age, silver medal at the Olympics. The judges' scores 2 9s, 8s and 8s and halves, 85 on the dive.
Remember, anything in diving better than 7 means a good dive. So those are great scores. See the control in the handstand. Bends into the pike position. She'll be perfectly straight in on the entry. And that's a great entry.
That should catapult her into first, but after the first round, she was in 3rd place. The standings there you see on the board. This is after the first round of diving. You see Michele Mitchell in 3rd place. Veronica Ribot is in 1st. We'll be back with more diving, but first back to the broadcast center and Brent Musburger.
All right, John, thank you. In that volleyball match, Cuba defeated the United States women 15-8, but the U.S. leads in the second one, best 3 out of 5. We'll continue with our gymnastics here from Indianapolis, from the Hoosier Dome, right after these messages from your local stations.
Very strong Cuban squad and still lead after 1 rotation in spite of Felix Aguilera's 9.65 on the pommel horse. Now the United States has moved on to the pommel horse. The Cubans move over to perform on the still rings. Kevin Davis spending more time with the medical staff than he is with his teammates, but this is Davis' best event, the pommel horse.
Yeah, I really don't feel that his injured ankle will come into play here. Look at the work on the flares as he travels across the horse. He is so aggressive on the horse. Good clean form up to the handstand on the end and back to the middle for the single leg work. I think he realizes that if he can really contribute to the U.S. team, it's going to be here on the pommel horse. What a nice routine for Kevin Davis.
A gutsy performance by Kevin Davis. He is a relatively newcomer to gymnastics, having begun in 1979.
Kevin's performance here reminds me of 79 World Championships when Nadia Comaneci had a severely infected hand, couldn't compete in the all-around, but came through with a beautiful beam performance. Had she not competed and received a 9-9, they would have counted a lower score and not won the team championships. So important here that Kevin would contribute.
He's contributing in more ways than one. He's inspiring his teammates. 9.75 for Kevin Davis. As Cuba's Luis Cortaya is preparing for his still rings routine, he knows he has to score well to keep Cuba in the hunt. But Cortaya is the youngest member and the least experienced on the Cuban team.
I've been so impressed with his style. Even though he's only 18 years old, he is a very complete gymnast. Good work there on a straddle plunge. Lower to an iron cross. Now kipped to an L. So he's completed the strength requirements as he presses to a handstand here with a hollow back press. Now I expect that he'll swing from here with giant swings. Oh, a double whip it to a double whip it, 2 in a row to a back upright handstand. Another whip it to a straddle plunge. And a back giant to his dismount, a piked full out. What a great dismount.
A clutch performance by Luis Cortaya, the young one who was raised in Pinar del Rio, Cuba. While we wait for Cortaya's score, let's go over to Tim Daggett of the United States. He's preparing for the pommel horse. Tim won the bronze medal in this event at the Olympic Games in 1984.
This has always been Tim Daggett's strongest event. He mounts with a spindled flare. Really nice work on the end of the horse.
That cheer you hear in the background is for Luis Cortaya. His score has just been posted. He got a 9.6.
Tim is so smooth on this event, but I can't help but notice he's a little bit weak as he approaches the end of the routine.
He seems to be sinking in the shoulders a little bit, and I do believe that's a result of his neck injury. But he's really aggressive there on the dismount to a handstand. That'll score well.
I'll tell you, that adrenaline flow is such now, I don't think he feels any pain.
Now let's take a look at the best part of Tim's exercise in the flared spindles here on the end. Notice his legs are moving in a clockwise fashion. His upper body is twisting back against his legs counterclockwise, and he does a 360-degree turn. Great stuff.
Tim Daggett is unusual in that he didn't come out of a club setting like most gymnasts. He competed instead in the park and recreation centers. He gets a 9.85. Here's an exciting little gymnast who electrifies the crowd with some exciting moves. Jose Fraga of Cuba. He has tremendous upper body strength.
Now watch this strength combination. Olympic cross pull out, Olympic cross on the other side pull out, and an iron cross again to a pull out. That's one of the most difficult strength combinations that you can do.
He's got to be one of the strongest gymnasts I've ever seen.
And again, an inverted iron cross. Right to a perfect front giant. So he can do both strength and swing elements. Once again, a whip it to another iron cross. There's a back kick to a handstand. And a bail to a laid out double back. Great dismount. Now for a gymnast to show in his routine 1 cross pullout shows tremendous strength. But to do 3 in a row, from Olympic crosses to a regular cross, pullout to an L, and he seems to do it easily.
9.75 for Jose Fraga. The United States still leads Cuba after 2 rotations. Cuba has its best events coming up, and we'll be back with the conclusion a little bit later.
All right, we'll keep tracking that gymnastics still ahead of us. There's an update in baseball, volleyball, diving, and we will have all those stories for you in just a moment. Baseball venue, Busch Stadium in Indianapolis. Fine crowd on hand. The game between the Cubans and the U.S. The U.S. is at bat in the bottom of the 4th inning. The United States jumped out to a 2-0 lead over the Cubans. And then in the top of the 4th, Orestes Kendelan came to the plate. He is a young Cuban catcher. He had already hit 4 home runs, and he gets all of that one, as they like to say. An error preceded it. And the Cubans have tied the United States at 2. Kendelan with the 5 home runs and 11 RBIs. Now, the United States women in white playing the favored Cubans in volleyball at the Hinkle Fieldhouse. And Cuba won the first 2 games, 15-8 and 15-8. The United States must win this to stay alive, and they have jumped ahead in the early going here of the 3rd game. And remember, the Cuban women have defeated the American women 22 straight times. So that's where we stand right now over at the volleyball venue. Meanwhile, platform diving, Michele Mitchell. Can she win a gold medal? Let's go back out live now to John Neighbor and Phil Boggs. John?
We're
We're back here at the Indiana University Natatorium. After 2 rounds of diving, Veronica Rabeau is still in first place. Michele Mitchell moved up to second on the dive you saw earlier. But Veronica Rabeau in the 3rd round turned in an outstanding dive, a reverse dive and pike position.
This is thus far the dive of the meet. Great jump, and watch the entry. Perfect lineup on the entry. Goes in and no splash.
Now Michele Mitchell countered in the 3rd round with a backward 1.5 somersault, 2.5 twists, 2.8 degree of difficulty.
Now they're still doing their what they call easy dives at this point. She's going to do a dive later on with 1 more twist. Watch, just a little short of vertical, a little bit of splash on the entry.
The big difference, of course, was the degree of difficulty on that. The scores matter, but not as much as the total point count. We're now back in the final diver in the 3rd round, Cristina Ramos. She's 19 years old. She'll be doing a back dive in pike position. Degree of difficulty 1.8.
Great entry. We talk about the degree of difficulty. That's how hard the dives are compared to each other. What she did was have a great entry. The judges don't judge the degree of difficulty. They don't care how hard the dive is. They judge the performance only. Then you multiply that score by the degree of difficulty.
You see the scores on the board. A total running total for her 110 points after the 3rd round.
Now we saw Michele Mitchell take off and Veronica Rabeau take off. The takeoff counts. This one, not a great jump, fell back a little bit. And here you see she's way short of vertical. But watch on the entry, she's able to pull her legs around and gets virtually no splash. A great entry.
So she goes back to dry herself off. We begin now the 4th round of diving. Angela Ribeiro preparing to do a forward flying 1.5 somersault, pike position 1.8.
Now the flying on the takeoff means the first half rotation, the first half somersault, is done with her body straight. Then she'll just pike over, which is bend in half, and line up for the entry. Splash on the entry. Dive in the air was good, that counts. Takeoff was good, that counts. The entry, the last thing the judges see, the most important, big splash, they'll take off some points for that.
Angela's no stranger to international competition. She's been here before. 7 6s, 6.5s. Her total now 149 points as she begins her 4th round. So the official standings you see on the board, that's after 3 rounds of diving. Michele Mitchell has moved into first place. Let's go back to Brent in the broadcast center.
All right, John, we'll be coming back to you throughout that coverage. Still ahead of us, women's basketball. The United States against Brazil, and perhaps the greatest women's player in the world right now from Brazil. They call her Hortensia. Also, Carl Lewis will go out against Bob Beeman's long jump world record, set down in Mexico City in 1968. 29.2.5 qualifying starts. Will he make a run at it today? And also, a boxer by the name of Juan Lamas takes to the ring. You perhaps have not heard of him, but he is the first Cuban boxer to move back to the center stage after last night's incident. We will be there. And we'll continue with our gymnastics coverage from Indianapolis and the Pan American Games on CBS in just a moment.
For the final of the team championship in men's gymnastics. After 5 rotations, a marvelous story has developed here. The U.S. team has overcome a great deal of adversity, and at a point in the competition where many thought they would fall back in the standings, the U.S. has extended its lead over the Cubans. Tim Brandt, Kathy Johnson, and Bart Connor waiting for the United States athletes to begin their 6th and final rotation, and this has turned into profiles in courage. Kathy, let's start with Kevin Davis.
Kevin Davis really showed a tremendous amount of inner courage and strength. Right before the competition started, he was vaulting in the warm-ups. He heard the ankle pop, so we definitely know there's some damage. He had trouble even walking on it. Came through when the team needed him most with some key performances.
He performed admirably. And Tim Daggett, what a story there, just 6 months after a severe neck injury.
Yeah, Tim is doing a very good job. You know, he took himself completely out of the running as an individual all-around performer when he had a disastrous performance on the rings and the vault yesterday. But he's showing a true team spirit here because he's digging in, even though he's not an individual contender, and he's putting together great performances when the team needs it.
Let us bring you up to date on some of the action leading up to the 6th rotation. Now, gymnasts affectionately called Tim Daggett the Bull, and he came charging back.
Tim had problems, as we mentioned, in the compulsory exercises, but he was able to design his optional routine around his weaknesses and perform beautifully.
Kevin Davis has been inspirational.
He turned in an outstanding and gutsy performance on the parallel bars for a 9.65 in spite of a very painful dismount.
They've been working on that ankle through most of the competition. His ankle heavily taped. The pain has to be excruciating. Perhaps the most consistent performer, Scott Johnson. He's been averaging 9.79 on his routines.
Scott did a beautiful laid-out souk full and stuck the landing. And then, of course, he went over to parallel bars and charged through this very exciting routine with some original elements and some classy style. Nice press to handstand, and he dismounted with a beautiful pike double back.
As expected, the Cubans going with their high-risk routines, crowd pleasers.
Jose Fraga did a vault in competition that few gymnasts would even try in practice. A handspring double front. He did not make it, scored only a 9.4.
So typical of the Cubans to go for the big, high-risk skills. And here it paid off. They excelled in this event. This is Felix Aguilera. Now watch this. Back-to-back reverse hex. He's done as well as anyone in the world.
At times, there's been sarcastic laughter from the Cubans. They feel they've been scored unjustly on the low side.
But even though they feel that the scores have not been high enough, they have definitely been very aggressive in their performances, sticking the landings on big dismounts like that. And Suarez, of course, did an unbelievable routine which featured a full twisting ginger and a tremendous combination here, a full over the bar to a one arm. Now another one arm, full twisting front out of an eagle grip. I believe it's original element. I don't think we've seen it ever competed before. He finished his exercise with eagle giant swings and a really high pike full out to a nice landing.
So, as we prepare for the 6th and final rotation for the United States on the high bar, the Cubans have a bye. They'll sit, wait, watch and hope before they come back for the 7th rotation on the floor exercise. Davis approaches the high bar for his final routine. Somewhere in the recesses of his mind, he has to have thoughts of how painful that dismount will be on his injured ankle.
And not only am I sure that he's worried about the dismount, but he's got to get by the big release move right here at the beginning of his exercise. Okay, here it comes. Stalder, reverse hack, no problem. He does a move called a Weiler kip. Gets back into the giant swings with a Stalder. And there's his inverted giant swings. So far, the exercise is going very smoothly, but you know right now, he's thinking, I gotta nail this dismount, and he knows it's gonna hurt. There's a laid out, pull out, over-rotated.
Are you surprised he didn't simplify the dismount?
Well, many times gymnasts do water back, but I really feel that that's the dismount he's been training. Many times it's too late to go back and change things.
Obviously in pain, Kevin did not perform routines on the vault or the floor exercise because of that injury.
Let's go, Charles.
Now let's see what happens here on the dismount. He's going to do a laid out, full out. It looks to me like he slung it out. He let go a little early and pulled the rotation around too far. You know that had to hurt.
Davis' score has been posted, 9.45. Now, you may have heard Scott Johnson say, come on, Charlie. Charlie Lakes is next up on the high bar. And Charlie has struggled on every apparatus today. He's fallen 3 times in the competition, including his favorite event, the parallel bars.
This is Charlie's event. It's perfect for his personality. He's such a free spirit. If anyone plays gymnastics, it's Charlie. Now watch this move. Whoa! So front and so high. Now reverse heck equally as high. Double layout dismount. Beautiful exercise. His best of the entire competition.
I think Charlie plays to the crowd. He has a t-shirt that says intensity or insanity. He was on the brink.
Charlie, of course, is coming back from a severely bruised tailbone earlier in the week.
and yet he looks really strong here. He did a beautiful Jaeger flip, and here is an excellent reverse hecht over the top of the bar into giant swings, and he sets up a layout double back, which he slung out a little bit, but boy, was he high.
Outstanding performance for Charlie Lakes. The score is posted 9.80. So the U.S. is closing the door on Cuba with Tim Daggett and Scott Johnson still to come. As a matter of fact, the U.S. can mathematically eliminate Cuba before the Cubans' final rotation. Christy Phillips and the United States women have just completed their workout next door and are now anxious spectators, cheerleaders, if you will, for their male counterparts. Tim Daggett knows how close they are to clinching the gold medal.
And Tim, being helped up by Olympic coach A.B. Grossfeld, has been in this position before. He was second to last in the '84 Olympic Games, needed to hit his routine to clinch the gold.
Here he goes with his release combination. Reverse hecht to a Ginger. Nicely done. Tim is known for his aggressive style in the sport of gymnastics. I feel since his injury, he isn't as aggressive as he used to be, but he is definitely really challenging this exercise here. Nice inverted giant swings. Here he sets up for a laid out double back. Great exercise.
The Cubans sitting out this rotation, watching their chances for a gold slip away.
There you go, bud. That was sweet, man.
Now you can see here on this release combination that Tim does a reverse hecht way up over the bar, right to a Ginger. In nice and tight, but very clean form. And on the laid out double backflip, he has good position in the air. He's not as high as Charlie Lakes was, but he did a better landing.
9.85. He's been solid on every apparatus. Scott Johnson needs a 9.85 to mathematically eliminate the Cubans. He can win the gold here. The final team member for the United States in this competition.
And Scott has been so solid throughout this competition, but he's been having trouble with high bar dismounts. He's been working on a new dismount. We'll see if he can do it here. Good inverted giant swings. Here's the one arm to a one-arm Ginger. Nicely done.
And Bart, I'm sure you've noticed, as I have, Scott is so much more relaxed going into the competition.
He really is very confident and very solid. He seems to be so much in control. Here's the dismount. No problem on a laid-out double back.
We've been told Scott Johnson is a 9.85, so the United States men have won the Pan Am gold medal for the first time since 1975. And as Bart Conner makes his way down to talk with some of the gymnasts, Kathy, let's take another look at Scott's brilliant routine.
And Scott was just great all throughout. This is his one-arm giants setting up for a one-arm Ginger. Perfect distance from the bar. Now here's the dismount. As Bart said earlier, he changed from doing a triple back, which he was having trouble, to a double layout and a perfect landing.
It's official, 9.85 for Scott Johnson. We've just been told the United States score beats the old Pan Am record score by 5 points. And the Cubans, now starting their final rotation, can't catch them. Here's Bart now with two of the heroes.
Kevin, coming into this competition, you looked great in practice. It wasn't there. You blew your ankle out coming into this optional session. What happened?
I was warming up my vault, and I landed sideways on the mat and turned my ankle when I landed half on the mat and half off the mat.
Do you know how bad it is?
It's a good twist. I dislocated my right ankle 2 years ago, and this one's pretty good. It's not as good as that one, but it was a good job.
How demoralizing was it for you right before you come out to roll your ankle?
You know, we've trained really hard, and I'm in the best shape I've ever been in. I really wanted to show a good all-around performance, and it was really hard to deal with right at first because I knew I wouldn't be able to do floor and vault.
And Tim Daggett, some days it's easy. Some days it just falls into place. Today was hard, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really hard. You know, I came off of a rough day yesterday. It was just really tough with the injury. I'm not as strong as I need to be, but God, you know, it was no Tim Daggett. It was USA today. I mean, we were a team, and we had a lot of obstacles to overcome, but man, we were going to do it from the start. I knew we were going to go out there and win the gold medal. Well, congratulations.
So, the U.S. team, a group which has changed so dramatically since the 1984 Olympics, has taken its first major step toward the 88 Games in Seoul. It is indeed a courageous team, led by a time-tested veteran, Scott Johnson. For Kathy Johnson and Bart Connor, I'm Tim Brandt.
All right, Tim, and a check of the final men's team statistics shows that Cuba finished almost 3 points behind the American men, who, as Tim told you, won their first Pan American gold since 1975. And what a great performance by Scott Johnson. Now, those marks count toward the all-around, which will be contested later today after we're off the air. Scott is with us live now. Scott, Tim, and Bart mentioned that you are very confident right now. Are you confident that you could walk away with the all-around championship here at the Pan Ams?
Well, I feel pretty confident actually going into today's competition. Of course, it helps a lot winning the team competition and having the lead that I do of .65 going into today. So right now, as I'm getting ready to warm up here, I do feel pretty good, but I'm not going to say to myself I'm going to walk away with it. No, there's a lot that can happen, so I'm just going to go out there and do the best that I can, of course, and try to keep a confident attitude throughout.
Scott, you're 25. You've been competing in gymnastics since you were 10. Korea is next year in the Olympics. What are your plans?
Well, my plans right now are definitely to get ready for the Olympics in Seoul, Korea. Between now and then, we have a World Championships in Rotterdam, Holland, which will be in October, so that's going to be a big stepping stone on our way to Seoul, Korea. And then, of course, to compete in the Olympic Games, I'm looking real forward to, and it would be great to win a medal there, and I think that I have a shot at that. But, you know, it would just be great to be there and to compete in the Olympics again. I'll be a two-time Olympian, and I'm really looking forward to that. After Seoul, Korea, I'm hanging up the grips. I'll be retired, so it'll be time to move on to something else.
All right, Scott, congratulations, and good luck this afternoon.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Now, another athlete that we're looking forward to seeing this afternoon. Over at track and field, Carl Lewis. Can he set sail and break Bob Beeman's long jump record of 29.2½? Now, remember the sidebar. A few years ago on this same track, he soared nearly 30 feet, according to observers, but they said he fouled on the jump. It was a controversial foul. Lewis says he's very comfortable. It's only qualifying this afternoon, but we will see later how he does. Also, Michele Mitchell. How is she doing climbing up the ladder over there in platform diving? And what about our women's volleyball team against the Cubans? And how about the baseball action? We'll have all those stories coming up for you in just a moment.
CBS Sports coverage of the 10th Pan American Games is
a member of the gold medal team for the United States at the Olympics in Los Angeles standing by. And Chris, how did we fare there?
Brent, we didn't do very well. The United States was swept in 3 straight games by the Cuban national team. The Cubans rated the #1 team in the world, and hitting and blocking, the Cubans are the best. A dominating performance by Cuba. They roll over the United States 15-8, 15-8, and 15-6. And really the story of the match, the hitting and the blocking of the Cubans. They were just so strong at the net. The United States at this point in time is rated #7 in the world, and quite frankly, they are just not in the class of the Cubans at this point. Tomorrow they will play Peru, a team that is in their class. Peru, the 4th rated team in the world, and that should be a very, very competitive match. Seeing action from the match, the Cubans just stronger at the net, hitting and spiking, blocking, and they just put it to the United States today.
Chris, what about our men's team? How will they fare?
The men's team will fare very well. As you know, they were upset in the first round by Brazil, but that is a match that doesn't mean that much. The United States will play well. They will go up against Argentina and then perhaps a showdown between the #2 team in the world, Cuba, and the #1 team in the world, United States, possibly in the gold medal round. Back to you, Brent.
All right, Chris, thank you. So that gets us up to date on the volleyball. Now, how about the baseball? Well, the Cubans and the United States were tied at 2. The storyline there, the young United States team jumped ahead 2-0 in the first inning. Then the Cubans tied it on a home run. And they sent their powerful young third baseman to the plate. That was in the 5th inning with the game deadlocked at 2. And Linares with a runner on second. Howard, the Cubans' second home run of the afternoon. And now in the top of the 6th inning, with the Cubans at bat, they lead by a score of 4-2. Interestingly enough, see the young man there, Linares? That's the player that Toronto has been trying to coax into defecting at least to Canada for home games, but he said, no, thank you, I want to stay right in Cuba. Diving, Michele Mitchell. Let's go live now to John Neighbor and Phil Boggs. John?
And indeed, Michele Mitchell is the top American. She's just fractions of a point out of the lead. She's on the board preparing for her 6th round dive. There are 8 rounds in this competition. Olympic champion Phil Boggs and I are sitting here at the Indiana University Natatorium watching a hot contest develop.
It's a great contest, John. This is where Michele should take over. This is an inward 3 1/2 somersault in tuck position. It's a 3.2 degree of difficulty, the most difficult dive done in this direction, most difficult one possible. That should be good enough to take the lead. It's not a great entry. She was straight up and down, but at 3.2 degree of difficulty, multiply that by the judges' scores, and she should vault into the lead.
So it's not just a contest of getting the best scores from the judges, but getting the most points out of the dive. And indeed, this might move her into first place. You see the scores: 7, 6.5, 1-8. The high and low will be thrown out. She stands at 309 right now.
She did stand for a long time on the platform, and that might have taken away some of her quickness. But still, 3 1/2 somersaults inward, and watching the finish. Right here on the finish, she opens up and is just not quite straight, but still a very good dive.
In fact, the degree of difficulty made the difference. That's her father, Anise Mitchell, who's an attorney out in the Phoenix area, Scottsdale to be precise. And they're a very close family. They like to talk to each other a lot about how they're doing in their respective sports. Anise is a golfer, and Michele is a diver naturally. Mary Ellen Clark, the other American, is now on platform. She's getting ready to do an arm stand, double somersault, pike position.
Good dive for her. Again, she showed the control in the handstand. That's all that's required. But as we move later into the competition, that's only 2.4 degree of difficulty, a little lower.
So Mary Ellen waiting for her scores. 7, 7.5 from the judges. High and low are tossed out. The average of the middle 3 will be taken and multiplied by the degree of difficulty.
Remember, anything in diving better than a 7 means a good dive. She shows good control in the handstand. Somersaults forward 2 times, right straight on her head.
What's it like to jump off the 10-meter platform? Well, it's a whole lot different than that springboard in your own backyard, and we asked Phil Boggs to explain it to us yesterday.
You ever sit at home, wonder what it would be like to jump off the diving platform? It's 10 meters high, 33 feet, and that's a long way down. Let me see if I can show you just what it's really like. There's 2 ways to get to the top of the platform. There's the stairs, and there's 56 of those, or there's an easier way. The elevator. I'll take the elevator. 4th floor, please.
Going down?
Nope, going all the way to the top. So we're finally here at 10 meter. Divers joke that it's 33 feet up, but 100 feet down. What's it really like? Well, if you took the elevator to the roof of your 3-story building and walked out on the roof and looked down, that's how high you'd be. What's it like to jump? Like this.
giving new meaning to the word drip dry suit. The scores from the judges, straight 10s, a perfect score for Phil Boggs, our own CBS sports analyst. So our standing after now the 6th round, after 5, Veronica Rabeau was our leader by just fractions of a point. Mary Ellen Clark in 3rd, but Michele Mitchell will probably move into 1st place after her 6th round dive. We're now beginning the 7th round of competition here. And our top first diver, Angela Ribeiro, 25 years old, 5 feet 4 inches tall, trains out of Miami, Florida. She'll be doing a backward 3.5 somersault in tuck position.
John, 7 of the 10 divers in the field train in the United States. The United States is the #1 diving power in the world, and as many people as can come over here to train with the best.
The applause you're hearing is the announcer's results after 6 rounds, and Michele Mitchell did move into the lead. She now has a 19-point advantage over all challengers. As the dives continue, they get more difficult. The first 4 are what are called easy dives with a limited degree of difficulty. There is our leader now, Michele Mitchell. She's a month older than anybody else in the competition, and that sophistication, that experience has to pay off.
Well, she's had a lot of experience at national and international competition. 9-time U.S. national champion, runner-up in the '84 Olympics, world platform diver of the year after the Olympics in 1985, and she's back at her best form right now.
So now we go back up to the 10-meter platform. Backward 3.5 somersault.
At 3.3, this is the most difficult dive being done in the competition. And this is the same optional many of the men, including Greg Louganis, used for his backward optional. Dive, John. Talking about how far down it is, it took the entire distance to make 3.5 somersaults backwards. And she's right straight ending on the entry. Not a great entry, but she'll be pleased with that.
Got to be pleased to have that 3.3 degree of difficulty behind you. Scores from the judges: 6s, a 5.5 or 2. 314 is her total after 7 rounds. But the real challenge now is standing on 10-meter platform. She's runner-up right now at this point with 2 dives remaining to America's Betsy Mitchell. She'll be doing a reverse 2.5 somersault, 2.7 degree of difficulty. Veronica Rabeau, born on the same day as Angela Ribeiro, incidentally, 1962, same day birthday.
She's sitting right now in a runner-up position. She was runner-up in 1983 to Wendy Weiland of the United States in this event. This time she'll stand on the end of the platform facing the pool and somersault back towards the platform. Reverse direction, reverse 2.5 somersaults. A good finish, but you can see on the start of that, instead of jumping way up in the air, she almost scooted off the platform. The judges will take off for that. Remember, 3 major areas count: that takeoff, the dive in the air, and the entry. The entry's the most important, and that was very good.
Judges scores 7, 7.5, 350 points is her total.
And it does leave the door open. Watch on the takeoff. Instead of a great jump up in the air, she scoots forward a little bit, but she'll hold on for the 2.5 somersaults, barely finishing them above the water. Just gets straight before she hits. A good finish.
So Michele Mitchell still to come in this round. We'll be back with more 10-meter diving action right after this message. John Neighbor with Olympic champion Phil Boggs. You're watching women's 10-meter platform diving. Throughout the earlier rounds of the competition, Michele Mitchell, America's top favorite, was in 2nd place behind the diver from Argentina, Veronica Rabeau. But as the dives got harder later in the final rounds, Michele Mitchell has assumed the lead. Right now on 10-meter platform, preparing to do her 2nd-to-last dive, is Debbie Fuller from Canada. An inward 2.5 somersault in pike position. 2.8 is the degree of difficulty.
Canadian national champion. She's been training at the University of Florida. Will transfer this fall to Ohio State and will continue to train in the United States up till the Olympics. This is the inward direction. She's going to turn around with her back to the pool, 33 feet up and somersault 2.5 times towards the platform. That was a good dive for her, but she opened the door early. And consequently, Michele Mitchell and Mary Ellen Clark, both from the United States, stepped in and are ahead of her. But she's a veteran of national and international competition.
21 years of age. She's Canadian national champion on all 3 diving events, 1 meter, 3 meter, and 10 meter. The scores from the judges, 7, 7.5.
She's going to somersault towards the platform. Need a good, strong jump, controlling the takeoff. You can see she kind of bent over and backed away a little bit. That takes off, but finishes 2.5 somersaults right straight in.
Veronica Ribot is the woman to beat. Michele Mitchell is now diving her second to last dive. This is a dangerous dive for her, a backward 1.5 somersault, 3.5 twists. She got lost in this dive earlier in the year.
At our national championship, she had a commanding lead going into this point in the competition. Got lost. In other words, she didn't know where she was while she was twisting, came out at the wrong point, did not do the dive as described, got 0 points and fell into second.
She knows it.
That's being pleased at doing a great dive and relieved that it didn't happen again.
It was a heavenly glance from that point. A backward 1.5 somersault, 3.5 twists, and look, 2 9s from the judges, 8s and 7s, 389 is her score. That will put her in the lead.
Nearly 80 points for that dive, which is a great total. Watch standing here. She is so aggressive on the takeoff. She really goes after the jump. Big jump. 3.5 twists. She stays in position waiting for it and right straight in at the entry and then takes the splash with her.
That puts her 39 points into the lead. Currently in third after 6 rounds is the other American, Mary Ellen Clark, who at 24 years of age and born on Christmas Day. She is a relative newcomer to major international contests. She's doing this dive forward, 3.5 somersault pike position.
She barely made that dive. When we say barely made, that's 3.5 somersaults, and she was all the way to the water level before she got there, and you heard that clunk on the finish, that splash. The judges will take off for that. She needs to be able to be faster and finish that dive higher.
So her 3rd place position after 7 rounds is in jeopardy here. 5s and 4s, a 3 will be thrown out. Mary Ellen Clark in possible jeopardy.
You can just watch in the takeoff. She hits the end of the tower. Here it looks good, but the somersault is so slow. She's open somersaulting and just dropping slowly and just hits the water and doesn't have the chance to get straight.
Well, the major contenders for the crown in this round have all completed. So the standings now, you see Michele Mitchell 309, Veronica Ribot 290. There are 2 dives remaining on this scoreboard, but there's only 1 dive remaining on the platform. Let's go back to the broadcast center and Brent Musburger.
All right, John, we'll come back for the conclusion of that, but let's get you up to date with the baseball game between Cuba and the United States. It is now through 6 innings, and Cuba continues to lead by a score of 4-2. The United States rallied in the bottom of the 6th inning. They put runners on 1st and 2nd with nobody out. And then watch their catcher, Orestes Kindelan, who had already homered, rifles a pickoff throw down to second base for the 1st out of the inning. The Cubans then got 2 more outs quickly, and it is 4-2 Cuba. They go to the 7th inning. We'll have more diving coming your way when we continue with our live coverage from Indianapolis and an overview of the great facilities that they have for this event in this city. The Goodyear blimp from high above, the blimp that has been covering major sporting events for the last 60 years. And we'll continue in just a moment. Back for the conclusion of the women's diving at the natatorium, but Carl Lewis is about to qualify in the long jump. So let's go live to Dick Stockton. Dick?
Thank you very much, Brent. And Carl Lewis is shortly going to attempt his first long jump qualifying. And to bring you up to date, this is what he is aiming for: the 19-year record of Bob Beamon, the world record of 29.2 1/2, Pan American record, American Ralph Boston, set in 1967. Now here is how they qualify for the finals. A 25-foot 5 1/4 jump automatically moves you into the finals, and there's a minimum of 12 jumpers. We have 16 taking part in all, and of course, in just a couple of moments, it'll be Carl Lewis and Craig Masbach, who is with us up here. And Craig, it is not inconceivable that Lewis could, believe it or not, establish or at least try to set a world record this afternoon in the qualifying.
The qualifying rounds are normally, Dick, for qualifying. You get a jump out there at the limit of 25 feet 5 1/4 inches, and then you go home and think about tomorrow's final competition. But when we spoke with Carl yesterday, he said he's approaching this in a totally different way. This is why he came here. He wants to set the world record, plain and simple. He wants to come out here, and today, he doesn't know what the conditions will be tomorrow. Conditions could be perfect today. He wants to go for the record.
And right now, they're not perfect. Actually, there is a headwind right now as you look at 1.3. When you see that wind gauge go 2.0 plus 2.0, it is a legal jump. Anything beyond that, it is not a legal jump. He also told us that for ideal conditions, he likes warm and humid weather, which he has, and he likes a consistent wind. And so far today, Craig, we have not had a consistent wind.
No, it's gusts behind the athletes. It's been in their face, as we saw in the most recent measurement. He may get lucky. That's what he's hoping for. He'll take the one jump for the record, qualify for tomorrow, and then of course look towards tomorrow.
And of course, the media attention is vast here. This is the group of photographers that are sitting and standing beyond the pit, and they're looking down at that runway. And speaking about the runway, it of course is one that Carl Lewis loves. He's never been under 28 feet on this runway, and Brent talked about the foul in 82 and where he might have been jumping 30 feet, although they don't really measure a foul jump. He likes it because it is a hard runway and it is longer than most.
He gets to take his full run up, which is important for him because he's the fastest long jumper in the world, and it's the hard surface to jump off of that he favors the most.
Carl, of course, is trying to come back a bit from 1984. He won 4 gold medals, but the press, of course, thought he might have been a bit arrogant and artificial, and he seems to have a new image going. He has that tremendous 50-meet long jump winning streak. The last one to beat him was Larry Myrick's, who, by the way, did not qualify in his first jump today. And it looks like Carl Lewis is trying to establish a new form for people to see.
I'd like to say something about that, Dick, only because in LA he was criticized because he didn't take all 6 long jumps. Why didn't Carl Lewis go for the world record in the Los Angeles Olympics? You know, Jesse Owens, the man he was trying to emulate in Los Angeles, never took more than twice in his career the full complement of 6 long jumps. Once at the 1936 Olympics, once at the National Championships. Carl was trying to win medals, not set world records in Los Angeles. I think the crowd misunderstood and booed him in an improper fashion.
I would agree. You know, when you buy your ticket, it doesn't say that the competitor is going to try for the world record. And of course, he won the 4 gold. Carl Lewis getting ready, and the wind is 0.9. So this would be a legal jump for Carl Lewis. Sister and mother. And of course, many of you know the story of how hard the death of his father, Bill, took its toll on him.
And Carl says that's what he thinks about before he jumps. His father told him, keep jumping, go right out. He jumped the day after his father died. He said, keep jumping and try to be the best in the world at what you do. Carl says that's what motivates him at the end of the runway.
If he qualifies, this would probably be his only jump, although you are allowed 3, as we said. He didn't like what he saw in a foul. So Carl Lewis fouls on the first, and he still, of course, would have 2 more.
Well, the wind was in his face. The wind gauge reads minus 2.0, meaning the wind was in his face. That throws his steps off completely. He has measured it scientifically to know that he will reach the board at his maximum speed. Can't do that when the wind is in your face.
And this is the inconsistent wind that Carl talked about. He doesn't like it this way, and so Carl Lewis fouls. He does not like the wind conditions, which changed dramatically, as you saw. Carl Lewis will be jumping again in a little while. Meanwhile, right now, let's go back to Brent Musburger at the CBS Broadcast Center. Brent?
All right, Dick, thank you. Now, Michele Mitchell closing in on a gold medal over in platform diving. Let's send you back right now to John Neighbor and Phil Boggs. John?
Well, while Carl Lewis is perhaps attempting to jump into the record books, we got divers jumping off the 10-meter platform, trying to execute triples and double somersaults. The leaders after 7 rounds, with 1 dive remaining, Michele Mitchell with a very comfortable lead. The question is, can the other American, Mary Ellen Clark, move up into medal contention? You see Michele Mitchell contemplating her dive. Veronica Rabeau was her main challenge, and in her final dive in the 8th round, she did a backward 2.5 somersaults in pike position.
He's going to come to the end of the diving board, back to the pool, 2.5 somersaults, 2.9 degree of difficulty. Remember, last round, Michele Mitchell's was 3.2. This is 2.9. She needs to do a big dive to push Michele. But in her final dive, instead of pushing Michele Mitchell, she opened the door for the silver medal for both Debbie Fuller of Canada and Mary Ellen Clark of the United States.
So this was the dive that happened just moments ago.
Way over rotation. So not only does she over rotate and not do the full dive as described, 2.5 somersaults, just more like 2 3/4. Big splash on the end, so they take off all the way around. Not a good dive.
Diving gets tough. Tough go diving. The scores from the judges on this final dive was 4.5s and 5s, which gave her 390, which put her only 1.05 points ahead of our leader, Michele Mitchell.
What that does is open the door for the silver and bronze medalists to move up ahead of her.
So all Michele has to do is really hit the water with the properly executed dive to win the gold medal. The contest is, will Mary Ellen Clark move into the silver or bronze spot with her dive that's coming up right after this. Michele Mitchell, 25 years of age, public relations specialist for Mission Bay. This is going for the gold right now.
For 3.5 somersaults.
Her competition here at the Pan Am Games, but there's still more action. In fact, the next diver up is fighting for hot contention. It looks like the United States will win the gold medal. This is the woman who won the silver in the Olympics. That's her father. Good luck charm, 8s, 8.5s, and 7.5s from the judges. Very comfortable score. Gold medal for Michele Mitchell.
At a great final total. Watching the takeoff, again, very aggressive. Great jump off the platform. Almost 2 somersaults done at platform level. Easily finishes 3.5 somersaults, opens up straight in on the entry. A great final dive.
Now Michele gets to be a spectator to watch her teammate, Mary Ellen Clark, who's doing her final dive of the competition. She needs 67.5 points on this one dive to move into 2nd place.
And that translates to about 8.5 from each of the judges. She needs to do a great dive. It's a back 1.5 somersaults with 2.5 twists. Won't do it. She left it short of vertical. She didn't finish all 1.5 somersaults. She got the 2.5 twists in, but definitely short of vertical. That's more like 6, 6.5.
So right now she's sitting in 3rd place, and the next diver up has a chance to knock her out of the medal competition. It's Wendy Fuller from Canada. But here are the judges' scores, as you said, Phil Boggs, good call. 6.5s and 7s.
Watch on the takeoff. She bends over like Michele does, but instead of getting the great jump, just turns right away into the twist and is short of the somersault. Watch right here. Just does not quite open up all the way straight, and you saw her feet apart too.
And so her coach, Vince Penzano, out of Columbus, Ohio, is giving her a few last-minute words of advice. This was the standings with 1 round remaining. Michele Mitchell, Veronica Rabeau, and Wendy Fuller. That's after 7 dives. We'll come back with the official scores in the final round of competition. First, back to Brent in the broadcast center.
All right, John, a marvelous performance there by Michele. So we're going to win a gold medal in the platform. Let's see, our women's volleyball team lost to the Cubans, but in another round of action over in the women's basketball, the United States team playing a very talented team from Brazil. We're going to update that story for you. And also we'll be taking you over to the boxing venue where the Cubans will move back into the ring for the first time since last night's incident. And James Brown will take a look at some athletes who don't get all the big headlines. And we will continue with our live coverage from Indianapolis right after these messages from your local stations. Let's get you up to date with the baseball, live from Busch Stadium. They have completed 7 innings. And moments ago, Ty Griffin from Tampa, Florida, who attends college at Georgia Tech, slammed this 2-out home run that has pulled the United States to within 1 run. It was above the white line there, so it was a home run, and it is now 4-3 Cuba over the United States. How about the women's basketball? Let's get an update on that. Brazil broke quickly, and the United States women in white were forced to rally Hortensia's number 4, and she's dropping back on defense, perhaps the finest all-around women's player in the world right now. But the U.S. women have taken the lead in that game right now. They are ahead of Brazil in the first half. Last time I saw a score, it was 20-13. The U.S. had the lead over the Brazilian team, and that's where they stand right now. So that gets you up to date with all the breaking stories around town. And James Brown has joined us now in the studio. And James, we got a lot of action going on right now.
A lot of it in the other sports, Brent. Thus far, most of the media coverage of the Pan American Games has focused on the big-name athletes in the major sports. Now, they tend to overshadow, of course, the lesser-known competitors in the so-called minor sports. But like their fellow athletes in the more marquee sports, these individuals are also world-class performers with compelling stories of their own. They just happen to compete in some unusual places. The Circle Theater is a downtown landmark. It's the home of the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra and this week an unlikely venue for weightlifting. Fans and athletes were ushered into the gentle strains of the orchestra's harpist. On Thursday night, super heavyweight Mario Martinez captured all 3 of the gold medals the United States would win. He snatched the Pan American record 396 pounds, and here for an encore, clean and jerked 479 pounds to take the super heavyweight title. Martinez's virtuoso performance, however, was not the only high note for the U.S. team. The story that carried the most emotional weight took place on Tuesday afternoon. It involved Roberto Urrutia, a Cuban native and 3-time world champion who defected in 1980 by jumping out of a hotel room window in Mexico City. He struggled before finding his niche as a truck driver in Florida and becoming an American citizen in 1986 in time to compete in these games.
I decided to defect from Cuba because, you know, I like to be in America. I think it's a great country for freedom. You can come over here and have a lot of opportunity for a job and for living. As a free country, as America.
Come on, get fired now. Motivation was hardly a problem. This was Urrutia's first international competition in 6 years. It was his chance to qualify for the World Championships and his first showdown with his former Cuban teammates.
Come on, punch it down. Punch it! Yes.
The former Pan Am gold medalist did well, but not well enough. The Cubans dominated this weight class and, as expected, garnered the gold and the silver. Still, Urrutia saved the best for last. On his final lift, he registered his best effort since his return to active competition. It was an emotional day. The man who admitted he was homesick as the Cuban anthem was played earned 3 bronze medals, and his warm reception here was the ultimate weight lifted off of his shoulders. Another of the interesting human dramas at these Pan American Games involves 21-year-old Natasha Hernandez, Venezuela's judo queen. Back in '83, she had the home mat advantage in Caracas, and with the wild partisan crowd urging her on, Hernandez hooked up with America's Anne-Marie Barnes in one of the most violent judo matches in Pan American history. Midway through that bout, Hernandez suffered a stress fracture of the right arm, but what really shattered her was the decision that went to the American. Now, 4 years later, she sought to avenge that defeat.
I am one of the best athletes in Venezuela, and everybody expects me to win a gold medal here.
This time, Hernandez found herself fighting in the United States.
And this time, the local hero was Lynn of Wisconsin. Still, there were familiar echoes of '83. The match itself was mild compared to the battle in Caracas. Hernandez, the reigning world champion, had not in fact lost since that time. Neither she nor Ruthke would score a point, and in the end, the match would come down to a decision of the judges. The verdict was unanimous in favor of the American. With her Pan Am gold medal, Ruthke also wrapped up a berth on the U.S. Olympic team and will compete in Seoul next summer. For Natasha, it was a bitter deja vu.
I love these Olympic gold! Gold medal, Vinny! All these years, gold medal!
Ever since I can remember, I had an Olympic dream. I wanted to go to the Olympics. And I feel like I'm in a dream right now. It's come true.
Indeed, on the victory stand, Ruthke could hardly contain herself. And when the ceremony ended, she couldn't resist rushing to the stands to share her triumph.
I think the jubilation that Lynn Ruthke showed on the victory stand is pretty indicative of the self-satisfaction that all the athletes in the minor sports had, just like those in the major sports, Brent.
James, the crowd looked good for the judo. How is it? Some of what we
packed house there. As a matter of fact, Taekwondo and judo are very exciting sports. Taekwondo, the martial arts, be an exhibition sport in the '88 Olympics.
Karate over there.
Oh, you know I love that, Brett.
I know you do. You probably have a piece on that. Thanks, James.
All right.
We want to take everybody back on over to the diving venue now for a complete wrap-up on what happened over there. So let's send you back to John Neighbor and Phil Boggs. John?
Vestry with the tag, yes.
So it's all over.
Take a look at it again.
Here at the women's 10-meter platform competition.
That's a hard pitch to throw, John.
On your screen, Michele
Blown
Mitchell,
away,
USA,
did an
wins the gold with a new Pan Am record.
Did not
you notice the Canadian Wendy Fuller moved into second place, knocking Veronica down to
Great
third.
Throw by service, Silvestri with the tag.
Normally wouldn't have to
dive. This was a backward 1.5 somersault with 2.5 twists, 2.8 degree of difficulty, and it was the scores from the judges on this dive that moved her from third into second, thereby knocking the American out of medal contention. And now our own Phil Boggs is at pool deck with this event's winner.
Congratulations, Michele. Looked like the contest turned on your back twister. Toughest dive in your list and one that cost you our U.S. Nationals.
Right. I was a happy camper when I hit the water on that dive. I was really a little nervous, just hoping that I wouldn't repeat the problem I had last week.
How about your overall performance? A new Pan Am Games record. How's that total stack up for you?
Well, 4:53, I'll take it any day of the week, and I was really pleased with the way I dived today.
Well, we were too. Congratulations, and back to the CBS Broadcast Center and Brent Musburger.
All right, Phil, thank you. We want everyone to see the very talented women's basketball player from Brazil, Hortensia, against the United States. And we'll go out live for coverage of that game when we continue here on CBS in just a moment.
We're at Market Square Arena, first half play. The United States of America leading Brazil 31-24 now with 5:15 to go in the first half. It has been a dominant inside game by the United States, plus some fine shooting. Ann Donovan, the 6'8", two-time Olympic veteran of the United States, was particularly effective in the first 10 minutes of the ball game. She has a decided height advantage and used that advantage for rebounding and scoring. Donovan currently getting a rest on the bench right now. The other key story for the United States has been the play of Teresa Edwards. She's been a demon defensively and has come on strong with a total of 12 points offensively, all the while holding Hortensia, the star of the Brazilian team, to 2 of 10 so far. Edwards has hit 5 of 6 from the field. This is Katrina McRae, whose free throws give the United States a 33-24 edge with 5:13 to go first half.
About the only thing the United States hasn't been able to do very well, Vern, is press Brazil because of this young lady right here, Paula, who is one of the best backcourt players in this tournament, men or women. I mean, she is great with the ball, understands the game, and is today showing us an outside shot. Sobral, number 11, has done a great job on the inside for Brazil, and those two have been the main stories against the U.S.
Underneath, this is Souza, Ruth Souza, who just does beat the 32nd international time clock with the shot. There is Hortensia Marcari, who has been the star of the Brazilian team for years. She has been held to 4 points on 2 of 10 shooting so far.
Well, you noticed she was getting a little nervous early in the ball game. She was not scoring. Teresa Edwards doing a good job on her, and has been pointed out here in her last game in the local league down in San Paulo. She scored 124 in 1 game, so it's somebody that's used to scoring. And anytime she's a great shooter as well as scorer. But there's the girl that I like even better than Hortensia, although Hortensia is considered the best offensive female player in the world. But Paula Silva right there, in my estimation, is just a superb player. I talked to her the other day after the game, asked her if she ever thought about coming to the States to play collegiately, and she said, no, I make too much money down in my home country. So we know where she's coming from, huh?
All right, we've got 4:40 to go first half. Let's go back to Brent Musburger in our CBS Broadcast Center.
All right, thank you very much, Vern Lundquist and Billy Packer. We have a development out at the baseball venue. We're going to go out live now to John Dockery. And John, tell me about this controversy that developed out at first base. What's going on?
Brent, some excitement here at Busch Stadium. We're in the middle of a controversial play. The United States believes they scored a run on a very controversial play only moments ago. Cuba is protesting the call, and we're waiting for the official, the umpires, to make a decision.
John, I think the United States has tied the game at 4-4. They have, John. Tie game.
We're in the bottom of the 8th inning. Cuba and the United States, the game tied at 4. And an interesting play. Tina Martinez doubled down the right center field line. Fiore then bunts. Watch him. Pacheco, the second baseman, fields it. Garcia, the pitcher, is over to cover. Fiore runs him over right there. Fiore is called out. That was the protest. It did not stand up.
Tino scores.
Martinez scores, and we're 4-4, bottom of the 8th inning here at Busch Stadium. And it was really Tino Martinez starting off this inning with a double to right center field that ignited the rally, and then a great bunt by Fiore right there. We're tied at 4. Cuba 4 runs, 5 hits, no errors. The United States 4 runs, 7 hits, and 2 errors. The hitter, Scott Service, the catcher, fouls one off. 1 strike.
John, this crowd is really into the game. They're really excited, really pumping up the young American team.
Scott Service, the catcher, number 28, from Coon Valley, Wisconsin, sophomore from Creighton, at bat.
Mark, as we watch this pitch, this is Brent back in the studio. Let me ask you, when the first base coach crossed that foul line and charged the umpire, shouldn't he have stopped play right there and not allowed the American runner to score?
Brent, I think you're right. He could have stopped play right there. Luckily for the Americans, he didn't.
He didn't, and we're 4-4, Brent. Service fouls one off. No balls, 2 strikes, 1 out. We're in the bottom of the 8th inning. The United States led this game 2-0. They got 4 hits and 2 runs in the first inning, but Kindelan then hit a 2-run shot to tie it. Linares, another home run, gave Cuba a 4-2 lead top of the 5th inning. Ty Griffin in the 7th inning made it 4-3. Linares over to Medina to be the out. 2 outs. Griffin made it 4-3. The United States trailed Cuba in the 7th inning, and then right there in the 8th inning, Martinez doubled, Fiore with the bunt, the controversial play, and we're tied at 4.
The young American squad has really executed well, John. That's the key to this game. They battled back 2 perfect hit and runs early in the game, and then the bunt by Fiore.
And the hitter, number 11, left fielder Ted Wood. He's 0 for 3.
John, Ted has outstanding power. He could hit one out here.
The pitch outside. Ball 1. And Ted Wood having an outstanding Pan Am series. Came into the game hitting .461, 5 RBIs, 1 home run. Sophomore from the University of New Orleans.
He's got power.
Two balls, no strikes. Garcia pitching so well. Valdez started the game, the lefty for Cuba. He only lasted 1/3 of an inning, gave up 4 hits, 2 runs. Garcia came on in relief and has pitched well for the Cubans.
John, he's thrown extremely hard.
strikes. 2 out. We're in the bottom of the 8th inning. Score tied. Cuba, the United States, both teams undefeated. This may be a preview of the gold medal game next Saturday. The pitch, strike 1.
Okay.
Fastball.
Good fastball. John, early in the game, believe it or not, Garcia was throwing 96 miles an hour. He slowed down a little bit now. He's throwing about 92.
A capacity crowd of 12,000 here at Busch Stadium for the Pan American competition on the edge of their seats. We're tied. Fouled off down the third baseline.
Good cut at that fastball. Good home run swing.
Ron Frazier, the coach of the United States team, the dean of American coaches from the University of Miami. Ted Wood, the batter. In the international rules, basically it's major league rules with 3 exceptions: the aluminum bat, the mercy rule, and the manager has only 3 free trips to the mound. Other than that, like the major league rules. Fly ball, Victor Mesa.
Didn't get
center
it.
field. Taylor reels it in. Okay, Brent, it's 4-4 here at Busch Stadium. Now back to Brent Musburger in the CBS Broadcast Center. Brent?
Hi, John Dockery and Mark Marcus. Thank you. I think the plate umpire should have stepped in and taken charge of that play, but a break. The United States ties it. We'll keep you up to date with that action as it unfolds. Now, Carl Lewis, about to attempt his 2nd qualifying jump. Let's go back out live to Dick Stockton. Dick?
Thank you very much, Brent. And there's Carl Lewis, who has not been at all pleased with the wind. He felt that the wind blew up into his face. Larry Myrick's gave that information to Irv Cross down on the field on the first jump, and so Lewis, who has 1 jumper ahead of him, fouled. The wind has played tricks all day, and we might have even had a crosswind. And right now, there is a headwind at this moment, Greg.
Of almost 5 miles per hour, Dick, which is not difficult for Lewis, I wouldn't think, to qualify, to get the 25-foot jump that he would need to qualify. But Carl Lewis doesn't accept simple 25-foot jumps. As you pointed out, he's never jumped less than 28 feet on this runway. There have only been 52 jumps in history, 28 feet or longer. He's done 36 of them.
That's pretty impressive. Larry Myrick's, by the way, the other American in this event, did qualify on his 2nd jump. So Myrick's, who a lot of people thought might even push Carl to greater heights.
Well, Carl has shown himself to be a great competitor on 2 main occasions in this event. Normally, he's so far ahead of everyone, there is no competition. Both times it was Larry Myrick's who put a long jump out there and caused Carl to come back. Once indoors, Carl came back with a world record. And at this year's outdoor championships, Carl had to respond with his longest jump of the year in order to beat Myrick's.
And of course, as we said, Myrick's was the last jumper to beat Carl Lewis. Lewis, with a streak of 50 consecutive triumphs in the long jump, lost to Myrick's indoors back in February of 1981. But Carl is getting set now for his 2nd attempt.
The jumpers are allowed 3 attempts to reach this distance of 25 feet, 5 1/4 inches. 12 people will qualify for the final tomorrow.
And it's important also for our viewers who may not be familiar with this event to know that when you land, it's the it's the farthest point to the back or to the block that you jump that it's measured in, not necessarily the front.
Now, if you put your hand down, for example, when you land and it's behind your feet, which is usually the point closest to the takeoff board, then that in fact is where they measure from.
A headwind, slight headwind for Carl Lewis here. And that could change as he comes down the runway.
Athletes in the field events are very sensitive to the wind. The pole vaulters, the high jumpers, and the long jumpers often will wait on the end of the runway until they feel the wind shift on a day like this. Then they take off.
Lewis's 2nd jump. He's entitled to 3 to qualify for the final. Capacity crowd is hushed in anticipation for Lewis's performance. Each jumper is entitled to 3 minutes to get ready, and Carl said he prefers to take about a minute.
He usually steps right out there and runs. This is all accounted for by the wind, I think, here. As you see, he has only a minute left now. He's waiting until the wind is still, which he thinks are the best conditions for jumping, or, of course, a wind at his back.
And that was a good one. It'll definitely qualify Carl Lewis for the finals. He was way behind the board, so he didn't even come close to that plasticine, which caused him the problems with the foul back in 1982.
He took what I think you'd call a safe jump, Dick. He didn't want to take a chance of fouling again and coming down to only one opportunity. His speed was very good early on, but his steps were off because the wind was in his face again. And when he took off, he was clearly behind the board. He reached out well. But he really was nowhere near his normal level. Look at the concentration on his face. At the same time, he's very relaxed. You could see he stuttered his step just before he took off. It really looked like what they call a pop jump.
And the 8.06 in meters translates into 26.5 inches. That's nowhere near the Pan Am record, but it qualifies Carl Lewis. Meanwhile, the men's 200-meter final is about to be run. The world record is held by Pietro Minea of Italy, and Carl Lewis has the American record. Don Quarry of Jamaica has the Pan American Games record. Now, the man to watch perhaps in lane 7 is Wallace Spearman out of the University of Arkansas, who was a surprise runner-up to Carl at the U.S. Championships. Might he be the favorite?
Well, you know, he ran in lane 1 when he got second to Carl. That's a tough lane for a big guy like him. Out in lane 7, he's going to do very well.
What about Floyd Hurd, who was ranked #1 in the world last year and then was disappointing?
It's been a little inconsistent since he won this year's NCAA championships.
Lane number 5 is Robson da Silva of Brazil, who was the 1985 world champion. So the top contenders here would be in lanes 4, 5, and 6. The rest of them are Leandro Penalver of Cuba, who was runner-up in the Pan American Games in '83 in this event. John Mayer of Jamaica, lane 2. In lane number 6, Clive Wright of Jamaica. And in lane 8, Felix Stevens of Cuba, one of the best in the world at 400. So Americans, Cubans, a Guyana, and a Jamaica runner have won the last 4, so it's been spread around pretty equally in this men's 200.
Well, it's an event that many countries can come up with good runners in. Keep your eye, though, on lane 7, Wallace Spearman. He's a guy that has had injury problems the last few years. He seems to have his health problems taken care of, and he told me yesterday he's going to concentrate on a very fast first 30 meters.
Spearman beat Hurd to win the World University Games last month, and he has had success against da Silva twice this season. Spearman lane 7, Hurd lane 4. There's start.
It is Spearman that gets a very good start out of the blocks, and he's really establishing a good lead around this first turn.
Spearman in the lead, and Hurd is now coming up from lane number 4, and Hurd has taken the lead here. Floyd Hurd of the United States is going to win this race. In lane number 4, Robson da Silva of Brazil in lane number 5. And so while Wallace Spearman got out to the quick start, he faltered and finishes 3rd, and a time of 20.29. And that's a pretty good time in the men's 200-meter final.
You know, I think Spearman gambled too much on the start. He got a good start, but then he didn't get into a good running rhythm. Hurd on the right of the screen had the advantage of working off of da Silva outside of him in the blue vest there. And he really ran an excellent curve right on the inside of the lane. When he got to the straightaway, he just had a lift and power. Look how high his knees are coming up here. Total control as he comes towards the finish line. He had some inconsistent runs in the last few weeks. He's back now.
And Craig, the time was even better than that, 20.25. So a very impressive time for Floyd Hurd of the United States, who set the collegiate record this year, under 20. Hurd wins the gold, da Silva of Brazil the silver, and Wallace Spearman the bronze from the United States. And Irv Cross will be talking with the winner in
ninth inning. Any old kind of run will win it for the United States. 1 out. Let's go live to John Dockery and Mark Marcus. John, you got it.
12,000. We're tied at 4. In the bottom of the 9th inning, 2 balls, 1 strike on Scott Livingstone. Cuba came with a new pitcher, left-hander Pablo Abreu. Livingstone 1 for 3. Fouled off down the line. Linares can't get it. Let me put this game in perspective. These teams came in undefeated, both with 4-0 records. This may be a preview of the gold medal game next Saturday. Cuba, the dominant team in amateur baseball for some 30 years. They've won 6 of 9 Pan Am golds, 8 world championships. The United States comes in with a young team. And here are the standings for the baseball competition here at the Pan American Games. It's really the United States and Cuba on a collision course for the gold. We're in the 9th inning, 4-4, bottom of the 9th inning. Scott Livingstone, 2 balls, 2 strikes, 1 out. Struck him out.
Good curveball, John.
And the format of the competition works something like this. There are 8 teams. They play each other in a round-robin competition. The teams with the best 4 records go on to the semifinals and then the medal rounds. It's number 4 against number 1, and then it's 2 against 3. Ron Frazier knows his team is headed in that direction, but wants to beat the Cubans this afternoon to prove that he can do it. The Cuban team, the veteran team coming into this competition, they average 26 years of age. The American team, mere boys. It's really the men against the boys. Mark Marquis, coach of Stanford, with me, our next Olympic coach, and this is a young American team, isn't it, Mark?
No question about it, John. The average age for the Cuban team is 26. Americans, 19, 20-year-olds. Cubans have been playing together for 6-7 years. United States players, 3 months.
The hitter for the United States, Larry Lamphere, the right fielder, number 2. 0 for 2 on the day, sacrificed in his second. Struck out his last 2 times up. Pablo Abreu on the mound for Cuba. Ooh, yes, he hit him. Lamphere trots down to first base. The potential winning run. Let's take a look at it again.
Breaking ball inside. Look at Lamphere. He didn't give. He let himself hang in there a little bit, John. He let himself get hit there.
But if you intentionally let yourself get hit, that will be called a ball.
Pretty good job acting, though. It was a breaking ball inside. He took one for the team there, John. I really believe that.
And this crowd of 12,000 near capacity here at Busch Stadium, the showdown. The United States undefeated 4-0 against the Cuban team, also 4-0 undefeated at Pan Am competition. The United States hoping to win their first gold in 20 years, since my partner Mark Marquis was the first baseman on that 1967 United States team in Winnipeg.
This young American team is playing a heck of a game here, John. Little cat and mouse here. Lamphere can steal. Abreu's going to keep him close.
Ty Griffin, the hitter, the second baseman. He had a home run earlier. The move, a good move to first Lamphere back.
Good move. Almost a balk move, but those umpires don't like to call the balk move on a left-hander. He's got a good one, though.
Ty Griffin, second baseman, switch hitter, batting right-handed against a left-hander. 19 years old from Tampa, a sophomore at Georgia Tech. One ball. Beefed up security here at Busch Stadium earlier today before we came into the game. Some dogs walking around sniffing for explosive. The lineup for the United States: Griffin, Silvestri, Martinez, Fiore, Service, Wood, Gonzalez, Livingstone, and Lamphere. Move to first. He's back.
I think Lamphere's going to take off here. It's just a matter of when.
Of course, Larry Lamphere, 5'9", 155 pounds. Good speed at 43 stolen bases at Central Michigan University this year.
Abreu, the Cuban pitcher, is going to keep Lamphere close.
The defense for the Cuban team: Castro, the catcher; Linares, the third baseman; Gonzalez at short; Pacheco, Medina. In the outfield, it's Gurriel, Mesa, and Casanova. 1 ball, 1 strike, 2 out. Score tied. Bottom of the 9th inning. United States against the Cubans. The United States team has not beaten the Cubans since 1967. The Cubans have won 37 straight games here at Pan Am competition. They are the dominant team in amateur baseball in the world. The move. Brew, Lamphere is back easily.
Brew knows Lamphere is going to steal.
Ty Griffin hit a home run from the left side 2 innings ago, batting from the right side, switch hitter. The move.
When's he going to go? When's he going to make his move to second?
Ron Frazier believes in pressure baseball. Pablo Abreu knows that. The United States team likes to run. The pitch.
There it goes.
Gurriel fading back. That ball.
It's gone.
It's gone. It's gone. Ty Griffin. Here's the replay. Ty Griffin, his second home run of the game. Take a look at it, Mark Marcus.
Breaking ball down and in, and Ty Griffin jumped on it. John, he hit it way out. Lazy breaking ball inside, low and inside. Ty Griffin drives it over the left center field wall.
And Lamphere scored ahead of him. The United States beats Cuba 6-4. The first time they've done that in 20 years. And look at Lamphere. Yes.
A little excited.
You know, I remember something in Lake Placid back in 1960. Some youngsters playing hockey for the United States against Russia. The United States snaps Cuba's 37-game winning streak, Brent. Now back to you at the CBS Broadcast Center.
Moment for that young United States team. Now, again, that does not guarantee them the gold medal. They probably are going to have to beat this talented Cuban team one more time to ensure that. Another story over track and field was Carl Lewis, already qualified for the long jump. Let's go back live to Dick Stockton. Dick?
All right, Brent, thank you very much. And Carl Lewis did qualify on his second jump, 26.5 inches. And, of course, tomorrow's the big day when everyone's anticipating his attempt at Bob Beeman's world record of 29 and 2.5 inches. Now, these three jumpers have automatically advanced to the final. And, of course, two of them are Americans, Carl, along with Larry Myrick's, and Jaime Jefferson of Cuba, who is outstanding in his own right, went over 27.10 earlier this year. And right now, Carl Lewis is with Irv Cross down on the infield. Irv?
Well, Carl, everybody came to the stadium expecting some kind of a world record attempt on me today. I guess conditions just weren't right for it, I guess, huh?
Yeah, it's difficult today, Irv, because just like I spoke about, the wind was very tough, and we had trouble with it swirling around, and on that long run, it just gives me trouble. But I'm glad I qualified and looking forward to tomorrow.
Well, you qualified on the second jump, and it looked as though you hit behind the board. We'll take a look at the replay. Here you come out, Carl. Tell us about the run.
Well, coming down, I felt right towards the board a very strong gust of wind, so at that point I realized that I was going to be out a little bit, so I just wanted to get my foot down and get a qualifying jump in. You know, you can't win the competition unless you're in the final, so that's what I tried to do.
Well, you jumped over 26 feet and you're about a foot behind the board, right. So that's good enough to get you into the finals, though. But what would it take for you to go ahead and hit that world record barrier that you've been after so long?
Well, tomorrow, having 6 jumps obviously is going to help. And then I just hope the wind calms down some and it doesn't swirl around as much. If it's nice and easy, then that gives all of us an opportunity to jump better, because you saw everyone jump a little below par.
All right, Carl.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
Thank you, Irv.
Dick?
Thank you very much, Irv. And there you can see a shot of the wind, and that's from the streamers on the top. And of course, those aren't the sole gauges of the wind. And I understand down on the track, Craig, we had a lot of crosswind. So the streamers are moving, and who knows what's going down on the track.
The wind seemed to change on every jump, sometimes in the jumpers' faces, sometimes at their backs. You know, Carl jumped 26 feet 5.5 inches. That would put him among the top 30 in the world last year. Still a great jump.
All right, thank you very much. And of course, Carl Lewis will shoot for the world record tomorrow in the final. Meanwhile, we'll send you back now to Brent Musburger at the CBS Broadcast Center. Brent?
All right, Dick, thank you. Something to look forward to tomorrow. Now, the boxing venue. Kenneth Gould of the United States team will be fighting live when we continue here from Indianapolis in just a moment.
Here looking at downtown Indianapolis, we are at the Convention Center in the heart of downtown Indianapolis, the boxing venue, and we have action underway, and upcoming will be the welterweight bout at 147 pounds, featuring Kenneth Gould against Bernard Wilson of Grenada. Tim Ryan and Gil Clancy here with the bout underway in the background. Michael Collins, the bantamweight, advanced earlier today with a victory over Pantaleon of the Dominican Republic. And now it'll be the welterweight bout with Kenneth Gould against Bernard Wilson of Grenada. And Gil, Kenneth Gould is the world champion. He was very impressive winning the Olympic Festival, and when we covered him in the box off at Colorado Springs.
Tim, I like Kenneth Gould. He's like a little bouncing ball. He keeps a good platform, bounces around, southpaw, in and out, throws punches in beautiful combinations.
Gould is from Rockford, Illinois, born in Chicago. He's coached by his father, Nathaniel Gould. Here you see him warming up, and he's a confident young guy, three-time U.S. amateur champion, and very much ready for a fellow who figures to be overmatched today in Bernard Wilson of Grenada. Certainly hasn't had the kind of competition that Kenneth Gould has had.
Well, Tim, that's so important to all of our kids. We have a good international program now. They're all experienced kids when they go in that ring.
Now, Wilson is 25 years of age. Gould is only 20, but the difference is what Gil described. Gould's been in there against a lot of top international competition. So we're going to be back with that welterweight bout, Kenneth Gould of the United States, Bernard Wilson of Grenada, when we return to the Pan American Games coverage in a moment.
Gould is about ready to fight. Tim and Gil will be covering that. Also, we're going to hear from Ty Griffin, who hit that dramatic home run to win it for the United States against Cuba. Pat O'Brien will have a special report for us, and we'll be taking a look at some of the other events that are already underway. And after our Pan Am coverage, we're going to take you out to Colorado for the third round of the International Golf Tournament. But right now, let's go live to Tim Ryan. Tim?
We're back at the boxing venue in the Convention Center in Indianapolis, and Kenneth Gould has just entered the ring. The 1986 world champion at this welterweight, 147 pounds. His opponent is Bernard Wilson of Grenada, 25 years of age, with a record of 34-6 as an amateur, two-time Eastern Caribbean champion, and silver medalist at the 1985 Central American Championships. He was his country's '84 Olympic representative. And now let's get the introductions.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next contest is in the 67 kilogram, 147-pound weight category. Introducing in the red corner from Grenada, Bernard Wilson. And in the blue corner from the United States of America, Kenneth Gould.
Kenneth Gould, 20 years of age, 5'6". The taller Wilson is 5'8", and he is 25 years of age. But as we commented a few minutes ago, the more difficult experience, the better competition has been in the case of Kenneth Gould, the world champion and three-time U.S. amateur champion from Rockford, Illinois. His first appearance here in the Pan American Games. And earlier, his teammate Michael Collins, the bantamweight, 119-pounder, advanced with a victory over Jose Pantaleon of the Dominican Republic. The referee for this bout is Augustin Zaragoza of Mexico. Round number one. We are live from the Convention Center in Indianapolis.
Tim, Gould has very, very fast hands. Sets you up and throws those beautiful combinations. And a very, very confident young fighter.
Heavyweight Michael Bent is the U.S. team captain, but Gould was selected to take the boxer's oath, representing all of the boxers in the Pan American Games, along with Candelario Duvergel of Cuba at the opening of the boxing competition on Thursday night.
Tim, he wobbled Wilson with a right hook.
Gould is the heavy favorite in this bout. Ahead of him is a young Cuban by the name of Juan Lemus, who won very impressively earlier by knockout over a Jamaican boxer, just 19 years of age. First time we had seen him in international competition. And should they meet in the final, which they could well do, Gould and Lemus could provide quite an electrifying bout.
Well, Tim, it would be a typical great matchup. The boxer Gould against the puncher Lemus.
Gould asserting himself here in round one against Bernard Wilson from Grenada. Solid right by Gould, but Wilson showing he can take a shot.
Hit him right on the chin, Tim. Didn't move him at all.
Slipped by Gould. Roosevelt Sanders, the head coach of the U.S. team, very pleased with the attitude of his boxers. They're all confident, yet they're not braggadocio, with possible exception of Riddick Bowe, the super heavyweight, is kind of a fun guy to listen to describing his prospects as an amateur to pro.
Well, he said he'd hire Mike Tyson as a sparring partner after he wins the championship. Would you say that's confidence?
Kenneth Gould is a little different style. He's a kind of a quiet guy, but a very pleasant, well-spoken young man. Solid jabs by Gould.
Watch the way Gould bounces around the ring, Tim. He's so quick on his feet. Look, he's bouncing up and down like a bouncing ball.
We were impressed also in Colorado Springs during the Pan Am box off. Our CBS coverage of that event is great concentration. Keeps his mind on matters, keeps his eye on the target at all times.
Well, Tim, you know, in the box office, he got nailed with a punch in the first round. He went down like a shot. He got up and won a decision. Referee doesn't want to get himself dirty, so he has to find to wipe his own gloves off.
Well, he's got a nice clean white uniform on there. Under 20 seconds to go in round one, a round that's been dominated by the American Kenneth Gould against Bernard Wilson of Grenada. Right hand scored by Wilson in the last exchange. Final seconds. Number two, Kenneth Gould at the top of your screen against Bernard Wilson of Grenada. And a solid first round as we saw it for Kenneth Gould. 5 judges in amateur scoring on a 20-point scoring system will render the decision after 3 rounds. The referee is Agustin Zaragoza from Mexico. Gould, the world champion, wants to be the Pan Am gold medal winner.
Putting those punches together real well, Tim. Nice short punches. Feints well, steps aside. As you say, good concentration.
Bantamweight Michael Collins advanced earlier this afternoon to the next round at 119 pounds. Very impressive unanimous decision victory over Jose Pantaleon of the Dominican Republic. Minute gone by here in round number 2.
He's completely frustrating Wilson, Tim. He knows when Wilson's going to throw a punch before Wilson does.
Good quick hands by Kenneth Gould, and as you pointed out, his balance and footwork is just excellent. Gould, along with Collins, winner earlier today, 2 of the American fighters that we felt had a real good chance to win a gold medal here at these Pan American Games, and he's looking very much like a champion now. He will have that young Cuban ahead of him by the name of Juan Lemus, 19-year-old newcomer to the Cuban international squad. Looked very impressive in his win.
He's completely outclassing Wilson, Tim. Frustrating him, giving him no target, just picking him apart. Beautiful boxing job.
You know, Wilson, 25 years of age, has been boxing for 7 years, but the difference, as we said at the opening of our telecast from the boxing venue here. He just hasn't had the same kind of competition in the training every day that Kenneth Gould gets here in the U.S. Don't imagine that there are a whole lot of great boxers over in Grenada, small island with not a big sporting population.
Tim, you know, as we mentioned before, the judges are supposed to be counting the punches. I defy anybody to count the punches that Gould's throwing.
They're going to give a standing 8 count to Wilson after the punishment he took in the last exchange. It's quite common in amateur boxing if you're not used to it. Sometimes it can be just one solid punch. They'll give him an 8 count, and it might be an accumulation of punishment like Gould just handed out. Under the 30-second mark, we go in round 2. A caution to Gould for holding there as he was in close. Gould continues to pour the pressure on.
Well, he always has an angle on the other guy. The other guy's punching, but he can't hit Gould. Gould is always over to one side or the other. Look at him bouncing around there.
Final seconds of round number 2. Kenneth Gould in control. Round number 3, Kenneth Gould on the left of your screen with the USA on his back and carrying the flag proudly here against Bernard Wilson of Grenada with a good performance.
All right, how many punches did he throw in that exchange, Ryan?
Well, I counted 12, Gil, and
no, it wasn't
how many
12,
do you have?
it was 14.
That's what they expect of the judges, to count the punches. 3 punches is worth a point in amateur scoring.
And the knockdown is only a third of a point. Now,
that's right. That. Any punch, no matter whether it knocks a man down or not, is worth only a third of a point. And I'm sure the judges scored much as we would, Gil, by the overall impression of who's doing what, not really trying to count the punches. But the rule book says that's what they're supposed to do.
Notre Dame, I keep trying to tell you, who's doing what to whom?
That's correct. Very well said grammatically, Clancy, as we're in round number 3 here with Gould in command of this bout. And now the referee checking his mouth for a possible cut, and again, another safety measure here in amateur boxing. They will stop for the slightest little nick here. And here's a guy in command of the fight, but they're checking here. It looks like his lower lip, the doctor taking a look at. And things now continue with a little more than 2 minutes remaining.
Tim, if I was Gould now, I'd just box the rest of the round. He doesn't have to let this guy touch him.
Well, you know, I wonder, he saw the Cuban, Lemus, win a very impressive knockout victory. I wonder if that's on his mind, that he'd like to look as good as the Cuban whom he will likely meet in the final.
Tim, he'll have his chance to look as good if he fights the Cuban. Right now, it's safety first if he has a little cut.
Now there's been another stoppage, and they're calling up the trainer to, I believe, adjust the headgear of the Grenadan Bernard Wilson.
Those are the head guards that they tell us never slip, Tim.
Yes, right.
You know,
I know you love those head guards, Clance. And your theory is that the way they get knocked around in the ring and do slip, sometime a boxer's not going to see a punch come, might wind up being more hurt.
Tim, that's when you really get hurt, when you don't see a punch coming. Almost any fighter that gets knocked out will tell you, I never saw the punch.
Would you favor taking them off in amateur boxing then?
Absolutely, unless they can find a head guard that does not slip. And up to this point, they haven't found one.
All right, we're in the 3rd round. Kenneth Gould and Bernard Wilson.
And as Jose Torres, the New York boxing commissioner and former world champion, always says, sometimes a head guard can make you a little more careless and you allow yourself to get hit. You're not as defense conscious. So there's a couple of minuses as far as head guards are concerned.
Wilson landed a good left hand in the last exchange, but Gould is just overwhelming him. We got to give Wilson credit for grit here as he's hanging in, doing the best he can, but this is clearly an overmatch. Gould, the more skilled boxer of the two. Now there's a left-hand lead landed by Wilson.
Well, Tim, but Gould is moving away with the punches. They're not solid punches. Oh, look at that switch off. He's all over the place, Gould. He surrounds the guy.
We mentioned that Michael Collins, a bantamweight, he scored impressively earlier today, unanimous decision to advance in the bantamweight division. Under a minute to go in the bout. Gould looks fresh as a daisy, very sharp, very alert.
See, here he is bouncing back again, making the guy reach and then nailing him.
Chicago-born Kenneth Gould, now living in Rockford, Illinois, near the Windy City.
There's the bounce again. Once you start bouncing, he gets that motor going.
Wilson's legs looking a little weak at this point. Final seconds of the bout. So Kenneth Gould from Rockford, Illinois would appear to be an easy winner here at the boxing venue. And we'll have the official decision. It takes some time for 5 judges to tote them up. And we'll be back here at the Convention Center with the decision in a moment. Let's go to Brent Musburger.
All right, Tim, appear is always the right word in international boxing competition. You never know how they're going to vote. We are going to have that decision for you. But we want to take you over to the track and field, the women's 200-meter final. And here again is Dick Stockton.
And we're ready now for the women's 200-meter final, where Americans have been vastly successful, winning 7 of 8 titles in this event. Marita Koch and Heike Dressler of East Germany combined for the world record, and Evelyn Ashford has the Pan American Games record. The favorite going in has to be Gwen Torrence of Decatur, Georgia, who is the current NCAA and World University Games champion in both the 100 and in this event, Craig.
She's a great, pure sprinter, Dick. She's the favorite here. She's looked very good in the semifinals.
Randy Gibbons, the other American competing out of Venice, California, is the defending Pan Americans champion, and of course she's had a good time this year.
She was 6th in the Olympics and has a lot of experience in these types of competitions, but she really hasn't been as sharp as Torrence in the latter part of the season.
And another challenger from lane number 3 out of the Bahamas is Pauline Davis, who's an All-American out of the University of Alabama.
She looked good in the 100 earlier this week, finishing 3rd, but she's not as good at the longer sprint.
And the rest of the field, Susana Armenteros of Cuba in lane 1, Yolanda Strawn of Barbados in lane 2, Angie Phipps of Canada lane number 6, Vivienne Spence of Jamaica lane 7, out of Hampton University in Virginia, and Esther Petitone of Cuba, who finished 7th at Caracas, is in lane number 8. There's Gwen Torrence.
Torrence, as I said, is a great pure sprinter. She's the one that's going to come out very quickly out of the blocks and probably attempt to establish a commanding lead around the first turn.
She just finished her senior year at the University of Georgia. And it looks like Gwen Torrence in lane number 5 coming on. Torrence in lane 5 has the lead. Randy Gibbons in lane 4 right with her. Americans are 1-2. It's going to be close to the finish. And now Gwen Torrence turns on the burners, and it's Gwen Torrence and Randy Gibbons 2nd, and Pauline Davis of the Bahamas 3rd. And the time is 22.52. No record in this event.
That's a great victory for Gwen Torrence. She's really shown her stuff in the major championships this year. Double winner at the NCAAs, double winner at the World University Games, and now here a very, very controlled, even victory. She came out very well out of the block stick. I think that's what put the pressure on the other runners. You know, sprinters like to take other sprinters out of their comfort zone. And you see right in the middle of the screen, it's Torrence that ran very, very well around this first turn. So all the others had to strain and push to catch up to her. She was able to relax on the home stretch, and even though Gibbons, to her right, looks pretty relaxed herself, it was Torrence that was superior in the latter stage of the race, that could lift her knees better, using her arms to drive towards the finish line. It was a controlled, good victory for Gwen Torrence.
And she beat her time, winning the semifinal at 22.78, and she beat that with a 22.52 effort. Gwen Torrence wins the gold medal, Randy Gibbons the silver, both Americans, and Pauline Davis of the Bahamas captures the bronze. And that race took place a little earlier at the IU Track Stadium, and want to remind you that tomorrow is the last day of track and field activity, and we have 10 finals scheduled, including, of course, Carl Lewis and the long jump. That's the story from here right now. Let's go back to the CBS Broadcast Center and Brent Musburger. Brent?
All right, Dick, and while we were away, Kenneth Gould was a winner in that fight, 5-0. That was the judges' ruling there. We will continue with our coverage of the 10th Pan American Games from Indianapolis in just a moment. How do you feed 5,000 hungry athletes? So let's go out to Pat O'Brien and find out. Pat?
All right, Brent, not since wartime have they had an operation like this at Fort Benjamin Harrison, where the Pan Am Village is. The feeding of the Pan American athletes. 22,000 meals a day is prepared here by ARA Services. We're getting ready for dinner tonight as we close our day. And our chef, Pierre Checky, what are you cooking tonight?
Well, we have chili, about 50 gallons of chili for tonight. We have some spare ribs, it's about 300 pounds of ribs. We have about enough rice to feed about 6,000 athletes, and we have some nice carrots here with some parsley and butter, glazed carrots. That will feed about also 6,000 athletes.
Smells good, too, Pierre. Brent, you know how you hate to do pots and pans? They wash 5,000 of them here at the Pan American Village. Brian, how many do you wash in your shift?
Oh, about 2,000 there.
Who washes them at home?
My mom.
That's Brian. His mom is watching Debbie. We're going to go out of here. They have about 600 people in all working here to put the food out for the athletes. And, of course, an essential part of the diet for any athlete is fruit. Here at the Pan American Village, ARA Services prepares 1 million pieces of fruit, about 800,000 to 1 million pieces of fruit during the Pan American Games. They hand wash 44,000 pieces of fruit each and every day. Lisa Garrison and John Castro here make a nice presentation for the athletes, doing some desserts, some pound cake with blueberries there. 80,000 pounds of product a day come through this warehouse during the Pan American Games, 150,000 pounds of meat, 35,000 pounds of fish, 500,000 8-ounce glasses of milk, 26,000 chickens, and beans. Tim Lacey's the operations manager here. Tell me the bean story.
Hi, Pat. We had a great donation of beans, 5,000 pounds of dry pinot beans. What to do with those? How do you feed athletes with beans? We're going to make everything. We're going to make baked beans, beans and rice, bean burritos, refried beans, beanie weenie, chili with beans, and we're going to even put beans in Jell-O.
Thanks, Tim. Speaking of Jell-O, by the way, they told me a great story here. The weirdest request they had is from the synchronized swimming team. They requested boiled Jell-O, Brent, to put on their hair so when they come back up out of the water, their hair's in place. I always wondered how they did that. Boiled Jell-O. How does the food get here? 8 trucks a day come in here, semi-trailer trucks, and each and every day they will go through 1 complete semi-trailer truck of ice. 8 trucks a day for the food, and that's a security problem, too. They all have to be checked. I want to quickly show you in here, they have a 32-foot freezer where they keep all the, hello everybody, where they keep all the cold food here because it does get quite hot. 2 weeks it took them to build this cafeteria. ARA Services built this, where they serve hot food to the athletes each and every day. It does get a little warm in here, about 105 degrees, but it doesn't take them long. It goes pretty quickly through here. In all, as we said, about 22,000 meals a day, and that comes out to 400,000 meals. That's feeding a city, folks. 400,000 meals during the course of the Pan Am Games. If they have 400,000 meals, of course, they have to have trays. So they're washing 22 to 30,000 trays a day. 2 million pieces of serving utensils they go through. You want a hot lunch? They're going to give away 30,000 box lunches for the athletes. ARA Services is not a stranger to this. They did it at the Olympics in Mexico and Montreal at the '84 Games. They've been at the Pan American Games since 1971 in Colombia. They're now in Calgary. It's a multi-million-dollar operation they go through. We are coming out of the cafeteria. This is what the athletes see when they come down with their trays. And we've got Charlotte Daniels, Chris Webb, and them Hash Boys. That's who that band is. This is where the athletes come and eat, and there's flags here. It's a nice presentation. And I've got Amigo here, the Pan American mascot, who brought my food in for me because I was a little busy. So, Brent, I know it's the end of the day, and I know you're not going to have your food for a while, but I'll tell you something. Thank you, Amigo. I got mine. Back to you, Brent. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, Pat, thank you. And as we go off the air, this is the medal standings. No surprise, the United States with a comfortable lead. How about the showing of Canada so far in the Pan American Games? Very strong. Now a reminder, coming up next on CBS, the international live coverage of that 3rd round golf tournament, a very unique tournament coming your way from Colorado. And we will update the action that is still going on here at the Pan Am Games about a little over an hour from now. Tomorrow, and that is at noon, we will start our coverage of the Pan Am Games. Greg Louganis will go for the gold in the 10-meter diving. You'll see Kelsey Banks also take to the ring and see if he can beat a Cuban. So I'm Brent Musburger, and we hope you've enjoyed today's coverage from Indianapolis of the 10th Pan American Games.
CBS Sports coverage of the 10th Pan American Games is sponsored by The Prudential, offering a full range of insurance and other financial services. Delta Faucet, designs that last. The Coca-Cola Company and your local Coca-Cola bottler. And by Ameritech, official communications company for the Pan Am Games.
It was this kind of afternoon at the Pan American Games. Ty Griffin in the bottom of the 9th inning hit a dramatic 2-run home run, and the United States defeated Cuba in baseball 6-4, the Cubans' first loss since '67. And Carl Lewis qualified for tomorrow's final in the long jump with a 26 feet 5.5-inch effort on his second qualifying attempt. Meanwhile, on the women's platform, the USA's Michele Mitchell makes this dive to propel herself to a gold medal. The action continues from Indianapolis. The Pan American Games return your way tomorrow afternoon on CBS.